Welcome to the Fantasy Audiobook, Marvel's King of the Undead. Chapter 61. Resisting the urge to beat Wayne to death, Professor X looked at Magneto opposite and said, "What is the purpose of your visit this time? I'm just here to pick up this poor kid," Magneto said as he took a step to the side, letting out John, who had been hiding behind him. The moment, Professor. In normal times, John always hoped that the eyes of the world would be focused on him and pay attention to his every move, but at this time, John wished he could become a speck of dust on the ground that no one paid attention to. "Professor, your true purpose." As Magneto's old friend for so many years, Professor X didn't believe that he would go so far for a John. "Stop meeting Wayne and tell him something he should have known." Magneto told the truth, and he naturally knew that such a lame excuse could not be hidden from Professor X. The fingers on the armrest twitched slightly. Professor X suppressed the shock in his heart and said calmly, "What an ordinary child needs to know." Seeing that, Professor, "Can an ordinary child who has just awakened do this?" As he spoke, Magneto slowly approached Professor X and lowered his voice and said, "On the first day Wayne went to Xavier Academy for Talents, I knew how much you valued him. Although I don't know the specific reason, I am very satisfied with his performance today, and I am ready to train him as my successor." Quote. At this time, Professor X, who was sitting in a wheelchair, was shocked and angry. When did Magneto reach out to the school? He didn't notice any clues. Raven. A name instantly appeared in Professor X's mind. Looking at Wayne, who was discussing with a few people around him about which uniforms looked good, Professor X also lowered his voice. "What did you say to him? Strike, don't you always know what he is doing secretly? You just watch your compatriots being tortured like this." There was a hint of anger in Magneto's words. He had only recently received this information, but he believed that his old friend Charles must know more than he did. He represents the military. If he acts rashly, more mutants may be threatened. Raven will take care of the follow-up matters. Only when it hurts them will they understand that they will eventually receive the punishment they deserve for the evil deeds they committed. Magneto's words were categorical and he seemed unwilling to argue with Professor X anymore. After Magneto finished speaking, he turned and walked towards Wayne, who was standing aside. "Wayne, Stryker's base is near Lake Yackley. Do you want to join me to liberate our compatriots?" "I'll go with you, Eric." Seeing that Wayne was a little moved, Professor X quickly took over the topic. "Professor," Jean exclaimed, "they all agree with the professor's philosophy and hope to solve these problems through peaceful means. As a result, Professor, are you serious?" Magneto asked. "It's time to teach them a lesson." Raising his hand to signal the X-Men behind him to be quiet, Professor X finally made a decision. It has been so long since the last time the two of them joined forces that the world has forgotten the powerful power possessed by the mutant bipolar. In the eyes of many new generations, the so-called bipolar mutants are just two bad old men who are about to die. The recent incidents of mutant abuse that have been frequently exposed have caused Professor. In this case, let him stand up again and tell organizations large and small in the world what the true power of mutants is. After making up his mind, Professor X, who was sitting in the wheelchair, seemed to be energized. If he was a sleeping little sheep before, then Professor. After many years, the most dangerous brain in the world will once again let those careerists who have forgotten the past see its true power. Let them understand the consequences of stretching their paws carelessly. "Wayne, take them back to school first." Just as Wayne was already walking towards the plane, Professor X suddenly said, "Won't I go?" Rubbing his fists, Wayne was ready to go on a big fight just now. This is not something that can be solved in a short time. We only know a general direction, but we don't know the specific location of the base yet. We also need to make some preparations before taking action. The information they have now is only a large area. Once there, they need to search carefully and leave Raven for some time. Let Raven rely on his own ability to infiltrate into the government and minimize the impact of this matter. I have more time than you. Looking at Professor X's old wrinkled face, Wayne rolled his eyes. The school is about to hold a competition, and Wolverine will also be there. Aren't you very interested in him? Seeing that Wayne seemed to be forcing himself to go, Professor X immediately threw out Wolverine. Although he decided to destroy the military base, Professor X still did not want Wayne to participate. One is because he doesn't want Wayne to be influenced by Magneto and become as extreme as Magneto. The second reason is that in the eyes of Professor Humph, Saber-toothed Tiger, who was standing behind Magneto, suddenly snorted when he heard Wolverine's name. He didn't have a good relationship with his younger brother. Again. Suddenly, Wayne next to me was unhappy. I was talking to Professor. Hiss. Looking at Wayne's raised fist, the saber-toothed tiger stood up, the hair on its body reflexively, and let out a hissing sound that a cat makes when it encounters danger. Just when Wayne was about to rush forward and beat up the saber-toothed tiger again, Professor. Seeing that he seemed to have no chance to beat the saber-toothed tiger again, Wayne looked around unwillingly and suddenly picked up the orange cat lying on the fat man's shoulders. Holding the orange cat in his hand and pointing it at the saber-toothed tiger, Wayne said to the orange cat. Fierce. Hiss. The orange cat cooperated very well. Magneto and Professor X walked at the back of the crowd. They walked very slowly and seemed to be whispering something. Finally getting on the plane, not knowing exactly what they said, Magneto suddenly turned his head and said proudly to Wayne below. You can always join the Brotherhood later if you want. Are you coveting my beauty? Quote. Magneto, who was originally looking proud, was suddenly stunned, as if he didn't understand why this junior who he had high hopes for suddenly said something incomprehensible. Professor X, who was in front of Magneto, laughed happily. He had already experienced Wayne's nonsense. The plane slowly rose into the sky, and then there were waves on the fuselage, and then it disappeared. How do we go back? Suddenly, the little fat man asked Wayne. You must know that their car was taken from Tony's house. If they returned the car, they could only walk back. Drive. Wayne picked up the phone, sent a text message directly to Tony, and then walked in the direction they came from. How do you think we can get a plane here while S.H.I.E.L.D. has it? Wayne asked as he sat in the car and looked at the fat man in the passenger seat. As early as the first time he boarded Coulson's plane, Wayne was a little envious of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s plane. Not only is there ample internal space, but the various supporting facilities in the aircraft are also very complete, which can fully meet the needs of the team members, and can almost serve as a mobile base for the team. I'll help you hack one over here. The little fat man answered while holding his cell phone. He is also a little envious of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s planes. With his ability, it is not difficult to remotely control a plane and fly it out secretly. Of course, how to deal with S.H.I.E.L.D.'s subsequent reaction is not something he can solve. Anyway, as long as Wayne agreed to the proposal, he could ask them to take the plane back later. For some reason, a luxury car like a Bentley seemed like a dream car to the fat man in the past, and owning a Bentley was something he couldn't even imagine. But now that he was lying in the car, the fat man suddenly felt a little bored. After seeing the wider world, the things he originally dreamed of seemed to be of little interest to the little fat man. Just like Wayne, when he was still in the orphanage, he once dreamed of opening a hot pot restaurant. However, now he can open one at any time as long as he thinks about it, but he has never mentioned it again. Therefore, the awakening of supernatural powers does not only change their bodies, but also changes their worldview. Quote. Let's talk about this later. Seeing the shining eyes of Liao and the little fat man, Captain Wayne suddenly felt a little embarrassed. Although Pepper was very skeptical of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s capabilities, Wayne was able to deduce S.H.I.E.L.D.'s strength and scale based on some information he received from Coulson. This is a global organization, and Wayne has no plans to mess with such a large organization just for a plane. After all, Professor X and Tony both still cooperate with him. Okay then. The little fat man who was originally in high spirits suddenly became weak. Don't be a coward, just do it. Liao, who was in the back row, moved his fat face forward. Ever since he discovered the correct use of his superpower, his whole body had swelled. According to his own words, he is now like a protagonist who has just obtained peerless martial arts. He is about to open up his own protagonist template, and will become an existence every second in the future. Okay. Remember to leave Peng's personal information when stealing. Glancing at Liao, who was not afraid of getting into trouble, Wayne said to the fat man next to him. Quote. The smile on Liao's face gradually disappeared. Although he didn't know what kind of organization S.H.I.E.L.D. was, since Wayne didn't dare to mess with him, it was very easy to deal with him. I don't think there's any rush when it comes to planes. Liao, who originally wanted to coax but ended up getting angry, suddenly changed the subject. When does the school competition start? Wayne asked, rolling his eyes at Liao again. Probably another week. Liao looked at the date and said. Then the school doesn't have any teachers anymore. Before leaving, Wayne asked Professor X how long their operation would take. After all, in Wayne's mind, it wasn't about invading a base in the past. How long does it take to fight? Even if it takes a little more time to dismantle the entire base after the fight, it only takes a day or two. At that time, Professor, you must know that they estimate that it will take about 5 days to find the specific location of the base this time. A research base of this level will not let you find it so easily. And they still need to wait for news from Mystique before taking action. Mystique needs to rely on her own powers to destroy the relationships between various military factions. To put it bluntly, let her turn into Stryker and go out to offend people. When more people are offended, if something happens to Stryker, there will be fewer people to speak for him. Therefore, it is conservatively estimated that it will take a week at the earliest for them to return to Xavier Academy for the gifted. Usually teacher Reina arranges these activities. She is also a mutant. What are her abilities? Wayne was a little surprised. Before, Lena had been teaching some theoretical knowledge, and Wayne thought that Lena was just an ordinary person. In fact, there are still some ordinary people in Xavier Academy for geniuses, such as cafeteria aunts or cleaning uncles. You can't expect a mutant aunt or uncle to help you cook and clean. And Lena always thought that she had never shown her abilities in front of everyone, so Wayne thought that Lena was also an ordinary person. Yes, I don't know what her abilities are. Anyway, she is a mutant. It is said that she was a teacher before she awakened. Liao waved his hand. She may have awakened the power of disgusting people. Wayne said somewhat bitterly. You must know that Wayne has considered himself to be a first-rate critic since he was a child. Especially some time ago, after carefully studying the book The Art of Speaking, Wayne's combat effectiveness has greatly improved. Even Tony and Wade are sometimes no match for Wayne. However, since Wayne came to Xavier Academy for Geniuses, he has been frustrated by Lena. For example, Wayne was initially assigned the role of music class representative. Although Wayne, the class representative, had not done anything yet, he still managed to disgust Wayne. So when it comes to who is the most annoying person to Wayne in the school, even John would probably be in the back row, but Lena is the well-deserved number one. Ha ha ha, you may have a surprise when you go back. Looking at Wayne's gritted teeth, Liao suddenly smiled mysteriously. He suddenly remembered another activity that the school would hold after every game. Glancing at Liao, who was inexplicably happy, Wayne shook his head and started driving the car attentively. You should know that Wayne is still driving without a license. It would be uncomfortable if the police found out about an accident. The time to go back was much faster than when he came. Not long after, Bentley arrived at the gate of the college. Leading his team members into the gate of Xavier Academy for Geniuses, Wayne suddenly felt a sense of emotion. Looking at the little fat man, Liao, Adonis and the orange cat who had fallen asleep on his shoulder, Wayne suddenly felt a little dazed. Unexpectedly, in just a few months, he actually formed a team. Although the strength of the few people behind him is still relatively weak, and there is not enough coordination between them. Although the number of people is still relatively small at present, including Wade who is traveling around, there are only 6 people. Even if you barely include the reluctant Tony, there are only 6.5. But Wayne has a feeling that this team will definitely become the most powerful team in the world. As for why he felt this way, Wayne thought about it for a while. It should be because they have such a powerful captain. The next morning after returning to the college, Wayne climbed out of bed as usual amidst the noise of the little fat man. After briefly tidying up, he followed the little fat man to the classroom. Although John injured someone, Bruce's injury gradually began to improve due to timely treatment, and the school got back on track. After entering the classroom, Wayne passed through the rows of desks and benches and sat alone in the last row of the classroom. As early as half a month ago, Wayne's punishment had been cancelled, but Wayne still chose a position at the back for himself. After all, he didn't really listen carefully. He just wanted to lie down, playing with mobile phone at table. Not long after, Reina, dressed in professional attire and wearing high heels, walked into the classroom on time. After stroking her long hair from her forehead, Reina did not open the lesson plan in her hand, but placed it on the podium. Hello everyone, I have something to announce today. A once-in-a-lifetime academy competition is about to begin. I hope everyone will actively sign up. As if she had memorized it in advance, Reina very officially promoted the upcoming competitions in the academy. Looking at the students below who were already gearing up, Reina smiled slightly and continued. Then, the more important thing is that the annual Xavier Music Festival will be held after the game. Suddenly, except for the few students who were eager to fight, everyone else cheered together. Compared to rough competition, most mutants actually prefer the concert after the competition. After all, before awakening the superpower, everyone was just an ordinary student, so no school would hold any fighting competitions. In the past, everyone's favorite was of course the concerts or dances held by the school. For these teenage boys and girls, the annual concerts held by Xavier Academy for the Gifted not only allow them to regain the feeling of the past, but also allow them to express their energy to their heart's content. Wayne, who was engrossed in watching, heard the cheers of the crowd and subconsciously raised his head. Looking at his excited classmates, Wayne was a little confused. What happened? Pulling the tail in front, Wayne asked in a low voice. Miaoji turned around and glared at Wayne fiercely, then explained. The school holds a concert every year after hosting the competition. The concert is nothing to be excited about. Looking at the continued cheering of others, Wayne was a little puzzled. Wayne, who has lived in an orphanage since childhood, has never attended a concert, and of course he cannot understand the appeal of concerts to students. After all, if you open a pig farm, you definitely won't hold a big party for your pigs every year. Likewise, you can't ask your pigs to understand why you like to sing. At this moment, Reina, who was cheering with the students, saw Wayne in the corner who was out of tune with the others. Ahem, everyone, please be quiet. I think since this is a concert, it stands to reason that the person responsible for organizing this event is of course our music class representative. Quote. Seeing everyone's eyes suddenly focus on him, Wayne suddenly became nervous. You want me to give a concert? Are you kidding me? I've never even seen what a concert looks like. Glancing at the smiling Lena, Wayne suddenly felt that her smile looked like the villain in the cartoons he watched when he was a child. Did she start plotting against me when we first met? Suddenly, Wayne was slightly shocked. What Liao said was indeed true, women have the most poisonous hearts. This is Lao's personal experience after 100 failed blind dates. I do not know. With a dark face, Wayne decisively refused. If you want me to go out and fight, I can fight. If I participate in a competition, I can fight 10. But what kind of concert do you want me to give? That's impossible. Liao and Steven are responsible for assisting you. Ignoring Wayne's refusal, Lena continued. Nice, we are willing. Before Wayne could refuse again, Liao suddenly shouted excitedly. The little fat man next to him was also full of excitement. He had also never attended a concert. But unlike Wayne, he is very yearning for the concert. If he can personally participate in the preparations, of course he is willing to do so. Then it's decided. Seeing that Fatty and Liao had no objections, Reina ignored the dark-faced Wayne and made the final decision. Two fat men. Liao, whose face was flushed with excitement, suddenly felt a chill on his back and turned his head reflexively. Wayne was staring at the back of his head fiercely, mumbling something unknown. With a frightened look on his face, Liao suddenly smiled after turning around. Aren't you afraid that he will beat you? The little fat man on the side asked softly. Ha, who am I? I have already mastered his character through countless tests. When he wants to hit you, you beat him down like crazy, and he will be too embarrassed to do it. So as long as he is not given a chance to legitimately hit someone, he can only hold it in. Liao continued to smile enigmatically, passing on the experience he had gained from committing suicide many times. But the competition is coming soon, and you are all a fighting team. Looking at Liao, who looked calm, the little fat man suddenly said leisurely. As mentioned before, the competition is divided into combat groups and other groups. The group work is all carried out by the school, based on each person's awakened superpower. In the past, Liao joined other groups because he didn't discover the correct use of superpowers. But this time, as soon as Liao came back, he began to brag about his one-on-one challenge against John. As a result, he was assigned to the combat group by the school. Quote. The smile on Liao's face slowly disappeared again. After thinking about the look in Wayne's eyes just now, Liao suddenly felt like he had pills. As soon as the bell rang, Wayne stood up from his seat and saw Liao running out like a fattened tornado chasing Reina. Why is he running? I won't hit him now. There are still several days left in the game. Sitting on Liao's seat, Wayne said to the fat man next to him. During the recent period, Wayne suddenly discovered that Liao had become a lot different, and sometimes even dared to provoke him. I don't know if it's because Liao is completely floating or because I, Wayne, can't lift the knife. Maybe he's asking Reina to help change his grouping. The little fat man smiled evilly and said that he was very much looking forward to the day when Liao and Wayne would meet on the playing field. Forget it, let's go sign up. Shaking his head, Wayne and the little fat man stood up together, called Adonis and Miaoji, and walked towards Lena's office. The school will only group everyone into groups, but whether you want to participate or not is up to you. If you want to participate, just sign up. You can't regret it after signing up. As for their team, except for Liao who signed up in advance in order to brag about his record as soon as he came back yesterday, several others have not signed up yet. The door of the office was suddenly pushed open. Reina, who was sitting inside, saw Wayne walking in with a few people and said, Wayne, as the music class representative, you need to perform alone at the music festival. Quote. Wayne, who had not spoken yet, suddenly felt uncomfortable and turned to look at Adonis in disbelief. Adonis nodded honestly, there was indeed such a rule. Clenching his fists, Wayne once again looked forward to the exciting showdown between himself and Liao. We want to sign up for the combat group competition. Well, they're fine, but you're not. Reina pointed at Wayne and said. Why? Wayne couldn't help shouting. He was holding back his anger and was preparing to settle matters with Liao in a few days. As a result, I couldn't participate. Because an enthusiastic classmate just suggested that since many teachers have gone out to perform tasks, the school is temporarily understaffed, and your strength is obvious to all, so you can help maintain order on the scene. Lena explained. Calm down. Looking at Wayne who seemed about to explode, the little fat man patted Wayne on the shoulder. Can I ask who that enthusiastic classmate is? Wayne's eyes twitched. Recalling Liao Qian's instruction to Wan just now not to tell Wayne that it was him who came up with the idea, Reina said slowly. It's Liao. After dinner in the evening, Wayne did not lie on the bed as usual, but appeared at the door of a room not far from his dormitory. After knocking again and no one answered, Wayne did not leave and stayed here patiently. Half an hour later, Wayne seemed to be impatient with the waiting and did not continue to guard the door. Instead, he returned to his dormitory angrily. Shortly after Wayne left, a plump figure suddenly appeared at the top of the stairs. He looked around in the corridor like a thief and found no trace of Wayne. He was relieved. This plump figure was Liao who had disappeared for a day. After enthusiastically giving suggestions to Reina, he repeatedly asked Reina not to reveal his identity. But Liao still felt guilty, so he hid secretly alone, and even didn't dare to go to the canteen during dinner. Watching the sky gradually darken, thinking that Wayne was probably lying on the bed at this time, Liao touched it bit by bit. Liao rushed to the door of his room. When Liao took out the key and was about to open the door, he suddenly felt his whole body tighten. It seemed as if something invisible was restraining him. After struggling twice in panic, Liao suddenly heard Adonis's voice coming from behind him. Okay, what's up? Although he couldn't turn his head, Liao could still move his mouth and asked with some confusion. Whatever you say is okay. The next moment, Wayne's voice sounded. In Liao's room, the little fat man looked at the luxurious room and asked Liao, who looked at Wayne with a flattering smile. Why do you live alone in a room? This was the first time they came to Liao's room. Usually, Liao shamelessly went to their room. Because I gave the money. Liao said honestly. He is meat on the chopping block now, so he can't help but be dishonest. In normal times, he would definitely show off his wealth wantonly. Evil capitalist. The little fat man curled his lips. Sure enough, money can play a huge role no matter where it is. I heard that there is an enthusiastic classmate in our class. Suddenly, Wayne said coldly. Ah, Why didn't I know? A few drops of cold sweat suddenly broke out on Lau's forehead. Could it be that Reina betrayed herself? You know I can't compete. How could this be like this? Isn't this aimed at you, Reina? I'll go find her and talk to her. It's too much. Liao stood up with an angry look and walked towards the door, as if he was going to have a fight with Reina. However, just as he stood up, Liao was pressed down by Wayne again. Stop acting, just tell me what to do. Wayne looked at the fat man in front of him fiercely and said. I was wrong. Realizing that the matter had been exposed, Liao decisively chose to admit his mistake. I will be responsible for the concert. You just need to watch from the side. No, just lie down next to it. With a smile on his face again, Liao slowly leaned his fat butt back. What about the songs performed? Seeing how knowledgeable Liao was, Wayne continued to ask. Seeing that Liao seemed hesitant, Wayne slowly raised his fist. There's really nothing we can do about it, but I know we have a song that's perfect for you to sing. I'll show you the translated version. Supported by a strong need for survival, Liao quickly took out his mobile phone from his wallet, found a page and handed it to Wayne. After reading the lyrics, Wayne reluctantly accepted Liao's proposal. So in the next few days, Wayne used the excuse of organizing the concert to skip class every day. In fact, he moved a recliner and lay on the side, leisurely watching Liao and the little fat man busy around and playing with his mobile phone. Two fat men, don't be lazy. Looking at the phone, Wayne suddenly saw Liao sneaking into the corner alone. Demon King. After being caught lazily, Liao muttered in a low voice, straightened out his fat belly and continued to work. In the past few days, Wayne has given Liao and others a perfect interpretation of what it means to be an ancient overseer. So the two of them secretly nicknamed Wayne the Big Devil. Looking at the gradually completed stage, Wayne suddenly felt an inexplicable sense of accomplishment. This is the first event I have held. Although he didn't seem to have contributed much and had been lying next to them, he had spent a lot of effort to make these two fat men work hard and not be lazy. Just when Wayne was intoxicated, his cell phone suddenly rang. Hey, putting the phone to his ear, Wayne said lazily. Wayne, where's my car? Tony's voice came over the phone. Tony had been helping S.H.I.E.L.D. develop some equipment and devices some time ago. He just got home today and was ready to go out for some fun while Pepe was away. As soon as he walked into the garage, he found that one of his cars was missing. No need for Jax to remind Tony, Tony immediately thought of Wayne. Sure enough, when I opened the phone that I hadn't used for a few days, the first message on it was a text message from Wayne. At Xavier Academy for Geniuses, you can get it yourself if you want. I won't drive back. Over this period of time, Wayne has become lazier and lazier, moving as much as he can. In addition to his own personality, another reason was that Wayne discovered that some very obvious but very slow changes seemed to be taking place in his body. It seems that a strange energy is gestating in his body. This even gave Wayne himself the illusion of being pregnant, and every cell in his body seemed to be wholeheartedly providing energy for the pregnancy, making Wayne feel a little empty in his body most of the time. So Wayne could only try to reduce his activity and get more sun. Every time he basked in the sun, the power seemed to grow at a slightly faster pace. Why are you becoming more and more lazy? Will you have time in 3 months? Tony didn't call to ask for a car this time. After all, he had enough cars in the garage to drive one for a week. What's wrong? I'm going to hold a Stark Industry Expo. Then I will show you the most advanced technology of this era and enrich your lack of vision. Tony said a little sternly. During this period of time when he was cooperating with S.H.I.E.L.D., although he was mainly helping S.H.I.E.L.D., he actually also obtained some useful technologies from S.H.I.E.L.D. Do you want to invite me to help you prepare? Wayne said with some surprise. How did Tony discover his talent? He was a little confused at the moment, why his talent was like the brightest star in the night sky. As long as you show a little bit of talent in a certain field, someone will immediately notice it and ask you for help. He had only been preparing for the concert for a few days, and Tony began to ask him to help prepare for a large-scale industrial expo. You can. Tony on the opposite side was also a little confused. Stop pretending. Did you already know that I am about to successfully hold the most powerful Xavier Academy of Genius concert ever? Beep beep beep. Wayne frowned as he listened to the beeping on the phone. Hang up my phone. Is this your attitude towards asking for help? Don't think you can do this just because we have a good relationship, you're a big piece of shit. Wayne put down the phone silently and made a decision in his heart. If Tony called back and begged him within half an hour, he would still give him some face and help him make preparations. Half an hour flew by while Wayne waited. Shit, I will never help you. Looking at the motionless mobile phone, Wayne said angrily. Fatterer, I'm staring at you. With nowhere to vent his anger, Wayne shouted decisively in the distance. During this period, Liao became Wayne's target. Whenever he was unhappy, he would go to Liao. Liao has no objection to this. With his face, as long as you don't do anything, he will happily ignore you even if you whisper in his ear all day long. Ding ding ding. The phone rang again, and Wayne picked it up and saw that it was not Tony, but a strange call. Hey, Wayne, Logan is back, do you want to come over? The call was from Lena. During this time, since Professor Wayne has the strongest combat capability in the academy, and due to his special experience, Wayne has always been more mature than other students. So of course, Wayne has actually been playing the role of half a teacher during this period. Many times, Rena would support Wayne if anything happened at school. Okay, I'll be right over here. After hanging up the phone, Wayne stood up from his exclusive recliner and walked towards the office. I'm going out for a while, so don't be lazy. When passing two fat men, Wayne glared at Liao fiercely and said. The big devil is finally gone. After wiping the sweat from his face, Liao trotted over to Wayne's recliner and lay down comfortably. Feeling the squeaking sound of the recliner under his butt, Liao deliberately shook his butt. You're done. Suddenly, the little fat man pointed behind Liao. Liao followed the little fat man's fingers and looked back, only to see Adonis appearing in the second-floor corridor behind them at some point, holding a mobile phone towards Liao. Seeing Liao's gaze, Adonis picked up the phone in his hand and shook it at Liao. He put his other hand in front of his neck and silently made a beheading gesture. Quote. Liao's originally content expression darkened instantly. On the other side, Wayne skillfully walked through the alleys in the college and followed the nearest route to Professor X's office, which was Reina's temporary office area these days. Opening the door, Wayne's eyes instantly focused on a middle-aged man he had never seen before in the room. Hello Wayne, this is Logan. Getting up from the office chair, Reina enthusiastically introduced each other to the two people they met for the first time. Wearing a somewhat worn denim jacket, his face is full of beards, and his eyes are full of wildness. Looking at Logan in front of him, Wayne suddenly noticed that the white t-shirt under his denim jacket seemed to be stained with some blood. There's blood on you, Wayne asked after politely greeting him. What's going on, Logan? At this time, Reina also noticed this trace of blood. On the way here, I taught a few short-sighted fools a lesson. Waving his hand nonchalantly, Logan explained. Okay, then tomorrow's game will go on as usual. I'll go handle some other things. You guys can talk about the specific arrangements for tomorrow's game. It's best to think of ways to get more students to participate. After saying that, Reina walked out on her high heels. You look very young. The remaining two people were silent for a long time, and then Logan spoke. How old are you? Wayne replied. Quote. Logan said he didn't want to talk to the person in front of him. Saber-toothed tiger is your brother. Feeling that he had successfully taken control of the conversation, Wayne continued. There's something familiar about saber-toothed tigers. Logan raised his hand and pressed his temple, as if he had heard this name somewhere, but he could not find any information about this person in his mind. Where's Stryker? Hiss. Logan's hand holding his head suddenly increased in intensity. The two familiar names seemed to evoke memories of the past. However, whenever he wanted to recall something, his brain felt a twinge of pain. What's wrong with you? Sensing something strange about Logan, Wayne asked. I forgot a lot of things. No longer recalling the past, Logan's whole body slowly recovered. You seem to know me very well. Logan looked at Wayne with some confusion. Not really, but I've heard of you before, and we have the same ability, you see. As he spoke, Wayne picked up the pen on the table and thrust the tip of the pen into the palm of his hand. Watching the pen tip pierce into his flesh with a blank expression, Wayne took out the pen tip and his palm quickly returned to its original shape at a speed visible to the naked eye. Logan was slightly stunned, looking at Wayne's recovery speed that seemed to be faster than his own. Logan was a little surprised. Why don't you practice? Looking at Logan, who seemed to be at a loss for words, Wayne said. With the inarticulate Logan and the topic stopper Wayne, having the two of them chatting together is simply more uncomfortable than killing them. It's long overdue. Listening to Wayne's suggestion, Logan's eyes lit up slightly. For people like him, the best way to get to know each other is of course to have a direct fight. Thinking of it, Logan prefers fists to communicate between men than talking with his mouth. What's more, Wayne has the same self-healing ability as himself, so there is no need to worry about accidental injuries. It seems that people with self-healing factors prefer fighting. Wayne mentioned it casually, and Logan suddenly found that he couldn't wait. The two people who reached an agreement walked straight towards the fighting gym of Xavier Academy for Geniuses, having already forgotten what Rena had entrusted to them. After a while, both Wayne and Logan arrived at the fighting gym. This is a place in Xavier Academy for the gifted that is specially used for students to fight. It is also the venue for the annual fighting group competition. The fighting gym covers a large area and has all kinds of equipment inside. The shape and layout of the entire venue is similar to that of a gymnasium. The fighting venue in the middle is about the size of a football field, surrounded by auditoriums. There are 3 similar venues, which are fully meet the needs of students. The fighting area is surrounded by bulletproof glass, which can clearly see the specific situation inside while ensuring the safety of the surrounding audience. The fighting gym is very lively at this time. Since the competition is about to start tomorrow, there are many students in the gym practicing their powers in a small area. There are also some combinations that participate in group battles and are honing their team's tacit understanding. The arrival of Wayne and Logan instantly attracted the attention of everyone in the venue. One is the actual combat instructor of the academy, and the other is a powerful newcomer who has just defeated Colossus. At this time, the two people came to the venue together, making everyone a little curious. A student holding a camera ran over excitedly and asked Wayne, "Are you here to compete, Wayne?" "Yes, Stan." Wayne nodded, and then walked to the middle of the field with Logan. This Stan is not Mystique, but Stan himself. As early as the day Professor. Stan's ability is to control light, which sounds very powerful, but Stan, who wants to be the world's #1 reporter, only uses his ability to create a better lighting environment and make the photos he takes clearer. Taking off his black coat, Wayne was wearing only a vest, revealing his strong muscles. Although he only eats and sleeps every day, thanks to his special powers, Wayne does not need to exercise to have the most perfect muscle lines. Click, click. Stan ran excitedly around the edge of the field, using his newly purchased telephoto lens to record the exciting battle that was about to take place. The students who were practicing also stopped today's practice and sat in the audience seats nearby, calling their friends to come quickly and waiting for the battle to begin. You must know that teacher-level battles don't happen often. Most of the time, the teachers in the school will only demonstrate the use of their own powers. Do you need a weapon? Looking at Wayne with his bare hands, Logan pointed to the weapon rack next to him and said, "The weapons here are very complete, whether they are knives, guns, sticks or some firearms loaded with rubber bullets." Unnecessary. Looking at Logan, who was also unarmed, Wayne waved his hands and answered, "Okay then." Seeing that Wayne insisted that there was no need for weapons, Logan made a swish sound and stretched out his 6 claws, etc. Looking at the metal claw reflecting the stunning light, Wayne twitched the corner of his mouth, turned around and picked up a knife from the shelf. Seeing the two men taking up their weapons, the surrounding audience suddenly burst into cheers. At this time, 2 fat figures emerged from the entrance of the fighting gym, and they were the Fat Man and Liao. "Call Meowth and Adonis quickly." Looking at the lively scene in front of him, Liao suddenly became excited. This was much more fun than setting up the stage. It would be better if we could see the scene where the big devil gets beaten. "I am coming," shouted at Logan. Wayne's whole body rushed towards Logan like a cannonball. Although Wayne is usually lazy, he is slowly accumulating energy. But at this critical moment, cells all over the body will be activated all of a sudden, as if a volcano that has been silent for a long time suddenly erupts. In addition, although the mysterious energy in the body has not been successfully conceived, it will give Wayne some feedback. Wayne's speed and strength have once again improved, reaching a new height. In the blink of an eye, Wayne appeared behind Logan as if teleporting. He raised his hand and swung out his knife, slashing towards Logan in front of him as fast as lightning. In addition to fists, Wayne is best at knife skills. After studying with Wade for a period of time, he added Wayne's own abnormal strength and speed. If there was a fight, Wade would be no match for Wayne. Then, just as Wayne's knife was about to make contact with Logan, Logan reacted quickly. Although he was not as fast as Wayne, his beast-like perception allowed him to sense threats coming from behind him in advance. Turning around, he put his claws on his chest, and 6 metal claws firmly held Wayne's blade. The response has been good. Seeing that Logan easily received his attack, Wayne's eyes lit up. From this moment, Wayne can see that Wolverine is obviously more powerful than the saber-toothed tiger. Sure enough, combat effectiveness still depends on appearance. Look at the dirty woman's fingernails of saber-toothed tiger, and then look at Wolverine's 6 graceful claws. Not on the same level at all. The blow missed, and Wayne's blade slipped. He took a step back and distanced himself, instead of continuing the stalemate with the opponent. However, Logan would not give Wayne a chance to distance himself. He followed Wayne's footsteps and opened his claws to the left and right, constantly grabbing at Wayne, who was not far away. Only when he is closer to Wayne can his claws pose a greater threat. Just like when a wolf is hunting, it needs to get close to its prey and use its sharp claws to take away the name of the prey. Jumping sharply to the left, Wayne dodged Logan's claws on his right shoulder. Seeing the approaching Logan, Wayne simply stopped retreating and crashed directly towards Logan. Boom! Wayne collided head-on with the approaching Logan, like 2 high-speed cars colliding head-on. There seemed to be an invisible wave spreading in the air, and if you listened carefully you could hear the sound of the 2 people's bones breaking. Upon receiving the impact, Wayne took 2 steps back. On the opposite side, Logan flew backwards like a passerby who had been hit by a car. Although Logan's body was implanted with Edelman metal, he was still unable to withstand Wayne's enhanced strength. Using 2 steps back to remove the force of the collision, Wayne rushed towards Logan again without giving Logan a chance to react. Call out. The ordinary standard long knife was wielded in various ways in Wayne's hands. As the long knife continued to chop, the sharp sound of breaking through the air continued to sound in the empty venue. Logan barely maintained his body's balance, relying on his years of combat experience and beast-like combat intuition to barely resist Wayne's stormy attacks. However, if you defend for a long time, you will lose. Although Logan's fighting skills and experience are far better than Wayne's, he cannot withstand Wayne's speed and strength. Using his claws to block Wayne's sharp blade again, Logan suddenly felt that his arms were numb from the constant collisions. In this kind of high-intensity battle, a little numbness in the arm means that there is a flaw in one's defense. Taking advantage of the gap when Logan had no time to return to defense, Wayne did not hesitate to pull back the long knife he had just slashed, and slashed at Logan's shoulder. PFF. Thump. The entire blade did not penetrate Logan's shoulder, but just a few centimeters into it, there was a sound of metal collision. Knowing that Logan had the ability to heal himself, Wayne showed no mercy. Now Wayne has regarded Logan as his enemy. When facing the enemy, as long as you show a trace of mercy, you may lose your life. But what Wayne didn't expect was that Logan not only had metal claws, but his entire skeleton seemed to be made of metal. When looking at Wayne, who was slightly stunned, Logan directly used his claws to grab the long knife and broke the long knife into 4 pieces. You are very good. Enduring the pain and pulling out the blade stuck in his shoulder, Logan looked at Wayne and said. Of course. Seeing that the long knife in his hand was broken, Wayne threw the handle of the knife in his hand and rushed forward again without giving Logan time to heal himself. Wayne discovered as early as Wade's sparring that if both sides of the battle have the ability to heal themselves, then the battle needs to end as quickly as possible. Otherwise, once the opponent recovers, they will fall into an endless battle unless one side runs out of energy. So while Logan is now unable to move one arm, Wayne will of course take advantage of your illness to kill you. Originally, Logan thought that Wayne's combat effectiveness would be reduced without the long sword in his hand. But as soon as they made contact, Logan felt a little melancholy. Without the long knife, Wayne's attacks became more brutal. Hands, feet, elbows, knees, shoulders, all parts of the body were used by Wayne as his weapons. When he first awakened, Wayne's body functions were only enhanced in all aspects, but with the emergence of the strange energy bred in Wayne's body, Wayne's entire physical strength seemed to have also increased. The strength of skin, bones and even internal organs has far exceeded that of ordinary humans. Of course, Wayne doesn't know these changes now. He can only feel that when he hits people with his hands, it doesn't seem to hurt as much as before. Although he didn't know what was going on, it didn't stop Wayne from hitting others more roughly. Under Wayne's relentless attack, it didn't take long for Logan, who had difficulty moving one arm, to once again reveal a flaw in Wayne's rough attack. The sharp claws of his left hand clawed towards Wayne's chest again, causing a gust of wind. However, facing the sharp metal claws, Wayne did not avoid it. The long battle made Wayne a little impatient, and he carried the metal claw hard, leaving 3 deep wounds on Wayne's chest. Wayne groaned and kicked Logan's knee. The moment Logan lost his balance, he took a step forward and hit Logan's chest hard with his shoulder. Wayne's strength is not as weak as ordinary people. For a moment, Logan only felt like he was hit head-on by a sports car traveling at more than 300 miles per hour. He was instantly flown into the sky. If it weren't for the Edelman metal skeleton in his body, I might be about to fall apart now. Then this round of attacks did not end. Wayne stepped forward and reached out with lightning speed to grab Logan's intact arm. He pulled outwards with both hands. After a click, Logan's arm has been dislocated. Logan screamed, feeling that his arm, which had been removed by Wayne, could no longer move. Logan gritted his teeth, raised the hand that was chopped off with some difficulty, and used his remaining strength to stab deeply into Wayne's body. Bright red blood flowed down Edelman's metal claws and slowly dripped onto the floor. Tick-tock, tick-tock. Drops of blood fell on the floor and made a slight sound, but the echoes in the silent venue at this moment seemed unusually clear. The noisy students around them all stopped breathing subconsciously. The intensity of the battle in front of them was somewhat unexpected. Generally speaking, there will not be such bloody scenes in the fighting arena. Not everyone has the ability to heal themselves. Everyone's sparring and competition are on point. Hiss. The big devil was actually impaled. Liao, who watched the game with a schadenfreude mentality, took a deep breath. They were standing in the front row of the venue, and if they looked carefully, they could clearly see a bright red claw emerging from Wayne's back. Although he has not seen many battle scenes with Wayne, in the few battles that Liao has seen with Wayne, Wayne has won the battle with an overwhelming advantage. For example, when fighting against Colossus and Saber-Tooth Tiger, Wayne easily defeated his opponents as if he were playing house. This was the first time he saw Wayne injured. Although he shouted that he hoped Wayne would be beaten violently, in his heart, he still supported his captain. It's okay, Wayne has the ability to heal himself. The little fat man on the side whispered, and at the same time began to cheer for Wayne in a low voice. Feeling the coldness in his chest and the sharp stinging sensation that followed, Wayne raised his fist and punched Logan in the face. Boom. Logan, whose arms were temporarily disabled, had no ability to resist at all. His whole body was like a lead ball, which was knocked out by Wayne and fell heavily to the floor. Wayne covered his wound with one hand and felt the heat flowing rapidly from his body to the wound. With the arrival of the heat flow, the originally hideous wound began to heal quickly. In less than 10 seconds, the wound had stopped bleeding. Seeing Logan lying on the ground unable to get up, Wayne stepped forward and stretched out his hand to pull Logan up. Can't you pull it with another hand? Logan, who was pulled up by Wayne, grinned in pain. Wayne was pulling the dislocated hand. Seeing the two of them stand up again, the venue, which had been silent for a few minutes, instantly erupted into deafening cheers again. Many students stood up involuntarily, clapping and shouting excitedly. This battle allowed these students who had been staying in the greenhouse for a long time to see a way of fighting that they had never seen before. It was no longer a playful fight, but real work with real swords and guns, as if the scenes in the movie appeared before their eyes. There is no gorgeous energy hedging, nor any dazzling variety of superpowers. The two of them are punching and kicking each other using the most primitive attack methods, but it makes people can't help but get goosebumps. This made the blood of these adolescent boys and girls boil. For a moment, many students who had not planned to participate in the fighting competition got up and ran towards Reina's office together. After witnessing today's battle, they can't wait to hope that they can have such an exciting battle in tomorrow's arena. Putting down the activity schedule she had just prepared, Raina was about to make a call to ask Logan and Wayne how the arrangements were going, when suddenly there was a group of hurried footsteps outside the door. Raina was suddenly startled, thinking something had happened in the school, so she quickly jumped up from her seat and opened the office door. Sure enough, there were more than a dozen students standing outside. From their rapidly rising and falling chests and rapid breathing rates, Raina could sense their anxiety. Her face darkened. Raina asked a student standing at the front. What happened? Taking a few deep breaths, the student calmed down his breathing. The competition just now saw the blood in his body rushing to his brain. He was so excited that he ran from the fighting gym to the office in one breath. Teacher, I want to sign up for tomorrow's fighting competition, the student said excitedly, as if he couldn't wait to find someone to fight with. I also want. Teacher Raina, we are all here to sign up. I want to fight. For a time, everyone rushed to express their intentions, and several groups of students came one after another, filling the spacious corridor in an instant. What happened? Raina was a little confused. In fact, not many people sign up to participate in fighting every year. Most students do not pay attention to combat effectiveness under the influence of Professor X. Such a hot scene has never appeared in the school before, even Professor. The battle between Logan and Wayne was so exciting. That's the real fight. This is how men should be. A group of adolescent teenagers have completely gone crazy. Witnessing a blood-heated battle at this age when it was easiest to fall into the second grade completely activated the warlike factor in their bodies. Just like many people who are polite at ordinary times, but they also secretly hide at home to watch e. If a more exciting, and bloody battle happens in front of you, can you still remain rational? Students who were able to go to the fighting arena originally had a desire to fight. In the atmosphere at that time, even if some students could still remain calm, the excitement in their hearts instantly ignited under the heckles of their surrounding partners. In the students' explanation, Lena finally understood the cause and effect of the matter. They were two people who she had high hopes for, hoping that they could discuss activities in the office and help her share her worries. She didn't know what was going on in their minds. Suddenly he ran to the student fighting field and had a fight with live ammunition, and in the end there was blood. Then these students were stimulated so much that they all came to sign up. Rena couldn't help but smile. Although the two people did not follow her arrangements, they did not expect that they would achieve unexpected results. Just when Wayne and Logan were surrounded by excited people, the voices of Meow and Adonis finally appeared at the entrance of the venue. Is the fight already over? We are late, Meow G said a little frustrated. She was sleeping when the little fat man sent her a text message. When she saw the text message, she hurried over and happened to meet Adonis at the door. I'm done reading. After glancing at Meow G, Adonis said slowly. Unlike Meow G, he came to the venue as soon as the little fat man sent the text message and watched the game completely. It's just that he doesn't like running over to join in the fun like the others, so he is going back to the dormitory after watching the game. Did Wayne win? Meow G asked expectantly. Correct. Adonis replied. Then let's go celebrate. After getting a satisfactory answer, Meow G suddenly became happy. Not caring that he didn't see the process, he grabbed Adonis and rushed towards the crowd. Wayne, you are so powerful. That Wolverine is really no match for you. After finally squeezing through the crowd, Meow G happily said to Wayne. After getting along for a while, Meow G discovered that Wayne was not as annoying as she thought. Although he always liked to pull his own tail, most of the time, Wayne would take care of her like a big brother. Haha, of course. Looking at Meow G and Adonis squeezed out of the crowd, Wayne suddenly laughed, without caring about the embarrassed Logan next to him. Wayne is of course more happy that his powerful side has been seen by his team members. At this moment, as if he saw Meow G and Adonis coming, the little fat man jumped out of nowhere, pulling Liao. Big Demon King, are you okay? Just tell me if it hurts. I won't laugh at you. Liao stared straight at Wayne's wound, seemingly concerned, but the slightly raised corners of his mouth betrayed his inner thoughts. Now this scene is the result he most hopes to see. The big devil is not life-threatening, but he is really beaten. He glanced at Liao in surprise, and the little fat man silently distanced himself from him. Demon King. Wayne was slightly startled. He still didn't know the nickname the two gave him in private. Let me see your wound. Liao didn't realize the danger was coming, and even took the initiative to reach out and pull Wayne's clothes. However, what caught his eye was a piece of smooth skin, with no trace of injury at all. It's all self-healing. Why are you recovering so quickly? Turning his head and looking at Logan, who still had scars on his shoulders, Liao said reluctantly. He didn't even notice that the face next to him, which was originally just embarrassed, had turned a little dark. He finally saw the big devil being beaten, but now he didn't even have any wounds. He couldn't accept this ending. Don't you think I'm good too soon? Let me see your recovery ability. Wayne narrowed his eyes, looked at Liao who looked unwilling, and suddenly punched out. Liao Yi, who had just come back and was about to explain, saw a fist quickly enlarged in his field of vision, and then a piercing scream sounded, and Liao's fat figure fell straight back. Why are you so careless? Seeing Liao falling into a coma, Wayne was a little surprised. He didn't realize at all that because he had just experienced a hearty battle, the punch just now could not control the force. Fortunately, Liao's skin was thick and thick, otherwise he would have been unconscious. Lifting the unconscious Liao, Wayne and the others ignored the students who started to revel inexplicably around them, pushed aside the dense crowd, and walked towards the medical room. Are they members of that team from last time? Following Wayne, Little Fatty and the others suddenly heard someone from the nearby crowd say. What team? Another asked. A few days ago, I received a text message saying that a team organized by Wayne was recruiting people. Ah, come to think of it, I hadn't gone yet. People around him were instantly attracted by this topic, and they all said that they had also received the text message at that time. I heard that they even secretly went out to participate in a mission. Said a boy with horns in the crowd. What task? Seeing that someone seemed to know more information, the people around him instantly became more curious. Capture John. Facing everyone's gaze, the boy with horns became even more proud. When others asked him, he only answered one question, whetting the appetite of those around him. With the X-Men, the man asked at first. The official statement from the college to students is that the X-Men are out to capture John. No, before the X-Men arrived, they had already beaten John to pieces. I heard that they also defeated more than a dozen of the Brotherhood's superpowers. Even Professor Just known. Even Professor X didn't know until later, so how did you know? One person asked unconvinced. Hey, Liao and I are friends. He is a member of Wayne's team. What he told me personally can be true. Being questioned in public, the boy with horns seemed a little anxious. Suddenly, Wayne carried Liao Chao and passed by everyone. The boy's eyes lit up instantly, pointing to the fat figure on Wayne's shoulder and shouted. Look, it's him. He's my friend. Everyone's eyes followed the horned boy's fingers. Suddenly, except for the unconscious Liao, everyone else in the team blushed. Especially when the boy said that they defeated more than a dozen people with powers that time, even Wayne, who had always been thick-skinned, felt a little embarrassed. It's all Liao's fault. It's okay to brag. Now you're almost bragging to the sky. Did you really defeat a dozen superpowers? A melon eater asked Wayne with an admiring look on his face. After hesitating twice, Wayne immediately quickened his pace and stopped answering the various questions around him. How should I answer this? Speaking in front of so many people, Liao is actually bragging. Or should I pretend to admit that I have indeed killed more than a dozen people? It's so embarrassing. Are you still recruiting people? I want to join in, too. Can I? Suddenly, someone made a start and said that he wanted to join Wayne's team, and everyone around him suddenly became excited. One by one, they began to clamor that they wanted to join the team. If it was not possible, they could just become a non-staff member. Although Wayne had already shown his strength when he beat Colossus before, there were not many onlookers when he first came, and most people just heard about it. Secondly, the quality of the battle this time was indeed much higher than the last time. Coupled with the atmosphere, these people were eager to join Wayne's team. After all, even if you sign up to participate in the competition, you can only play once, and if you join Wayne's team, you may have similar opportunities to participate in missions in the future. Who doesn't want to be able to brag to his friends about how he was able to challenge more than a dozen people in an external mission without being timid? However, Wayne and the others had slowly walked away, vaguely listening to the envy and adoration of the group members behind them. The little fat man, who was blushing with embarrassment, suddenly puffed up his chest. Behind him, Meow's tail even raised to the sky. Even Adonis, who had always had a dead face, showed a proud smile. Although the reason why these people envy them now is just because of the strength of their captain, one day, each of them will become the pride of the college and the idol of students of the same level. At this moment, Wayne, Little Fatty, Adonis, and Meowji looked at each other, and suddenly felt that although some of them had only known each other for a few months, they felt like family to each other. Facing the slowly setting sun, Wayne and the others walked forward briskly. Adonis, who was walking behind the three of them, suddenly controlled the shadows of several people to form a small shadow without anyone noticing. House of. The shadow is not big, and the outline even looks a little rough, but it is very warm. Of course, lying in the middle of the house was Liao, who was still unconscious. About 10 meters behind Wayne and others, Logan followed the people in front of him with 2 arms that were still somewhat difficult to move, and a hint of envy suddenly appeared in his eyes. Seeing a large group of people carrying a fat man come in, Dr. Jason quickly put on his green coat, pushed up the emergency bed and went forward. Looking at Liao, who was in a coma, he asked, "What's up with him? Probably a concussion." Wayne threw the unconscious Liao onto the emergency bed. With a squeak sound, the surface of the emergency bed sank sharply, and then bounced up again with some difficulty. Jason walked forward with the tool, looked at the big panda eyes in Liao Zuo's eyes, suppressed his smile, did some simple checks, and said to everyone, "It was probably an injury sustained during the sparring session. At this time of year, many students are sent here. It's nothing serious. They'll just wake up in a while." "That's good." Wayne breathed a sigh of relief and found a stool next to him to sit down. On the way here, Wayne was still blaming himself, wondering whether he would have caused Liao something wrong. Now seeing the doctor's tone of voice, which is something I'm used to, I immediately felt relieved. "Have you all participated in the team competition?" Jason asked Wayne. He could tell at a glance that the young man was obviously the leader of the people who came over. "Oh, I didn't. They competed in the team competition." Waving his hand, Wayne replied with some melancholy. Originally, he wanted to win the championship and teach the ungrateful Liao a lesson in an instant. But looking at Liao lying on the bed, Wayne suddenly felt better. Although he couldn't win the championship, he still achieved a goal. Originally, Wayne had always thought that Liao was participating in a singles competition, but he didn't know until the day before yesterday that in order to avoid being caught and beaten by Wayne, Liao quietly changed it to a team competition, and by the way, he won over Meowji and Adonis. 3 people form a group. Euphemistically speaking, as a team, people should advance and retreat together. It's nice to be young. After sighing, Jason shook his head with a regretful expression. "You also participated." Looking at Jason, who was only in his 20s, the little fat man asked curiously. "Of course, I was the runner-up." Sitting down across from several people, Jason hung his green coat on the hanger again and answered to everyone. "Usually the people who come here are for medical treatment or injury, but no one is willing to chat with him." "You are also a mutant, so who is the champion?" the little fat man continued to ask. At this moment, the door of the diagnosis room was suddenly pushed open again, and Wolverine walked in from the outside, took the words and said to the little fat man. "The champion that year was Colossus." "Yes, that's the big Iron Man." When it came to Colossus, Jason suddenly showed a look of disgust. After saying that, he stretched out his hand and pointed it at Logan, who had just entered the door. A circle of green light suddenly appeared on Jason's hand, and then the incompletely healed wound on Logan's body began to slowly squirm. After a while, the scabs were formed, and after a while, the newly formed scabs began to gradually fall off, revealing the newly grown skin inside. "What kind of power is that?" Meowji exclaimed. She had been coming to school for a while, but had never been to the medical room. "I can control bacteria. Everyone has countless bacteria. Some are beneficial and some are harmful, and I can control them as I wish." Looking at Meowji's surprised expression, Jason explained. "This matter is not a secret in the school. In fact, anyone who has been to the medical room knows Jason's ability." "How can such a powerful ability be?" Halfway through his words, Wayne suddenly came to his senses. This is naked ability restraint. According to common sense, if you can control the bacteria in this person's body, it is not difficult to defeat them. But the tragedy is that the Colossus that Jason met was not a normal person, but an Iron Man whose whole body was made of metal. If you only use bacteria, how can you remove this iron lump? Thinking of this, Wayne suddenly looked at Jason in front of him with some pity. Hey, what's your name? Sighing helplessly, Jason calmed down his mood. Back then, he was not like he is now. At that time, he was in his prime and fell in love with the most beautiful girl of their generation. He boasted in front of her that he wanted to win the fighting championship that year. With a sigh of relief, in order to win the championship, Jason finally passed 5 levels and defeated 6 generals, and finally reached the finals. Suddenly, a big Iron Man appeared in front of him. His face on the spot was as green as the light emitted when he used his ability. The final result was of course very miserable. Jason was beaten up by Colossus on the spot, and even his handsome face was beaten into a pig's head. After that failure, Jason, who was very proud of himself, cut off contact with the girl until the girl left school. Somewhat frustrated, Jason began to transform into a doctor. Wayne, you're Wayne, Jason exclaimed and ran towards Wayne. Looking at Wayne who was confused, Jason grabbed Wayne's hand and said, "It was you who knocked that stupid guy unconscious twice some time ago." Correct. Looking at Jason with an eager face, Wayne was still a little confused. You were the one who beat Colossus into a pig's head. Thank you so much. After hearing Wayne's answer, Jason wanted to go up and kiss him twice, but luckily he restrained himself and just held him in a circle. Over the years, he has wanted to find opportunities to take revenge on Colossus countless times, but the relationship between the two's ability to restrain himself is too obvious. And because Colossus is considered to be the strongest fighter in the school, there has been no chance of injury for so many years. Only when Wayne appeared did Jason finally get a valuable opportunity for revenge. Haha, kidding, he really can't resist being beaten. After figuring out the reason, Wayne immediately broke away from the enthusiastic Jason and waved his hand modestly, saying, "It's not that I'm great, but that the other person is too bad. It's really a small thing, but thank you anyway." After thanking Wayne, Jason breathed a sigh of relief, as if he had let out all the depression he had felt over the years. Next, the two began a 4-hour discussion on how Colossus hated this topic. After Logan's arm healed, he left the medical room alone, while Little Fatty, Meowji and others also returned to the dormitory at night. Only Wayne was still happily complaining about all kinds of things with Jason, but the target of their complaints had slowly changed from Colossus to Professor X. I'm telling you, that old bald man back then. Jason no longer had the calm temperament that an attending doctor should have, and he stretched out his hand to draw in the sky while complaining. I also feel that the old bald man is really. Wayne had one foot on Lau's belly and was half lying on the seat. Such complaints also allowed Wayne to learn more about Professor X and confirm his judgment about him. Drowsily trying to open his eyes, Liao vaguely heard that there seemed to be 2 people beside him having a heated discussion about bald heads and salty duck eggs. Where are you? What are they talking about? One of the voices seemed a little familiar. Liao tried to open his eyes while slowly combing his somewhat slow head. Weren't Wayne and Logan fighting? Why did he seem to be beaten? After a while, Liao finally cleared his mind. Opening his eyes, he suddenly realized that something was wrong with his vision. Why can I only see a slit with my right eye? With a sudden start, Liao suddenly sat up from the bed. However, because Liao was overweight and got up too quickly, the unfixed emergency bed lost its balance the moment Liao got up, and Liao fell to the left with the newly rising Liao. What? A scream interrupted Wayne and Jason's discussion. The two of them turned around at the same time and saw Liao Zheng getting up from the ground with his big ass stuck out. Liao stared hard at his eyes and carefully recalled what happened. Liao was still a little confused from the fall he just had. Seeing Wayne sitting in front of him and a man dressed as a doctor looking at him with his eyes wide open, Liao blurted out, "What a fat thing." As soon as he said it, Liao was suddenly stunned. He accidentally bit his tongue when he fell to the ground. As a result, he seemed a little awkward when speaking now. This look is pretty good. Looking at Liao, who had a dull expression with dark eyes, Wayne said with a smile, "I just said he was fine. I've seen a lot of minor injuries like this in the past few years. It's just a slight concussion and it will be fine after a while. Looking at Liao, who regained consciousness, Jason also smiled. During the time when Liao was in coma, he and Wayne chatted together, and it felt like old friends at first sight. Then let's go and see you tomorrow. I'll go to the game tomorrow. After standing up and stretching, Wayne said goodbye to Jason and left the hospital with Liao. How are the preparations for the concert going? Wayne asked as he walked ahead. No problem, guaranteed to be wonderful. After patting the fat on his chest, Liao became obviously much more honest after getting up this time. Because he suddenly discovered that the methods he summarized some time ago to deal with the big devil didn't seem to have much effect. He still couldn't figure out why he was beaten in the end despite strictly following the instructions on how to commit suicide safely. In other words, as long as you seek death, there is no such thing as safety. After thinking about this, Liao decided to humiliate himself for a while until he mastered a new way to deal with the big devil. Hey. Looking at Wayne walking in front, Liao suddenly let out a dark hey. Why are you laughing? Suddenly, Wayne glanced back, and his sixth sense told him that the fat man behind him seemed to be a little evil. Thinking of the wonderful performance tomorrow, I can't control how much I send. Liao changed his face in a second, looked at Wayne with a flattering smile and replied. Can you speak properly? Originally, he wanted to continue beating the fat man, but hearing Liao's strange accent, Wayne suddenly got goosebumps all over his body. Each of his team members seems to be more crooked than the last. It seems that he, the captain, has a long way to go in the future. Speeding up his pace, Wayne did not continue to accompany Liao around slowly, but took the lead in walking toward the dormitory. He still had one important thing to do today. After a while, Wayne returned to the dormitory. Looking at the little fat man lying on the bed, Wayne suddenly picked up the little fat man and tried to push him out of the door. Steven, go to Liao's place today to experience the deluxe double bedroom. Why? The little fat man looked confused. He was lying on the bed, caring about the president's daily life, and pretending to be cool in the hacker forum. Why did he suddenly want to sleep in a luxurious king-size bedroom? Ahem, I have something to do today. Pushing the little fat man out of the door, Wayne suddenly said with embarrassment. Oh, I understand. For a moment, the little fat man seemed to understand something, showed an expression of understanding, turned around and walked towards Liao's room. Call. Seeing that the little fat man was finally gone, Wayne suddenly breathed a sigh of relief. He turned on the computer in the room, entered the music player, then selected a piece of music and started singing according to the lines next to it. This is the first time Wayne has performed on stage and sang in front of everyone, so Wayne, who has always been a shy person, is rarely nervous and a little excited. Suppressing his excitement, Wayne started singing along with the computer over and over again. On the other side, when Liao's room door was pushed open, the little fat man sat down on the bed unceremoniously. Feeling the softness of the high-grade latex mattress, the little fat man quietly said to the surprised Liao. Liao, go knock on Wayne's door now. Why don't you go? Liao twitched his tongue, which was just fine. It must be no good thing for you to come here at night and ask me to knock on the door. I'm not stupid. Hey, I'll sleep here today. Wayne has grown up and needs a private space. Seeing that his instigation failed, the little fat man went back and occupied more than half of the bed. Tisk, 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 I have a 500 grams blockbuster here. When he mentioned this, Liao suddenly became energetic and tried to open his panda eyes, preparing to show the little fat man his inventory over the years. Turn on computer. D drive. Blockbusters from various countries. Looking at the blank folder in front of him, Liao couldn't help but curse. Why is it gone? How can it be gone? Liao Buxingxi pressed F5 and refreshed like crazy, with a ferocious expression as if he had just been subjected to some inhumane abuse. This has been his collection for many years. When Wayne cheated him out of 1,000, Liao was not as sad as he is now. In Liao's heart, money is an external possession, but this spiritual food can accompany him throughout his life. In the end, I didn't know that I was killed by that person. He was so angry now that he wanted to devour that person in one gulp. What's wrong? The little fat man on the side didn't bother to look, but immediately became interested when he saw Lao's crazy look. Get in front of the computer and take a look. The name of this desktop and folder seems familiar. Looking at the fleshy panda on the desktop background and the folder with blockbusters from various countries written in Chinese, the little fat man fell into memories. It seems that when I first awakened my powers and started hacking into private computers to try to find clues about Wayne, I saw this desktop and this folder. Then, there seemed to be a lot of hey little movies in it, and then I got excited and subconsciously deleted all these things. After swallowing quietly, the little fat man secretly glanced at Liao, who was still going crazy next to him, and suddenly comforted him with a guilty conscience. It's okay, it's okay. I'll check if the computer is malfunctioning. Hearing the words of the little fat man, Liao suddenly became hopeful. He knew the little fat man's superpowers. He could even enter the FBI's internal network whenever he wanted, and he would definitely be able to help him get his collection back. Look for it quickly. Liao grabbed the little fat man's shoulders excitedly, as if a person lost in the darkness finally saw a glimmer of light. Ahem, don't panic, don't panic. While comforting Liao, the little fat man mentally sent signals to his mobile phone over and over again. Blockbuster films, all kinds of blockbusters from various countries, a total of 500 grams. I still prefer domestic products. Suddenly, Liao said shyly. Ah, let me take a look. The little fat man continued to send messages to his mobile phone. Chinese blockbuster. The next second, suddenly AVI files began to appear one after another in the originally blank folder. Liao, who was originally depressed, suddenly laughed happily. It's still your strength. After patting the little fat man's shoulder hard again, Liao suddenly turned red and clicked on the first document with a name that looked a little shameful. Looking at the player selections that appeared in front of him, Liao licked his lips and clicked on the default player. Next second, Calabash Babies, 7 babies on a vine. Quote. Liao, whose face was red, was stunned for a moment and subconsciously looked at the fat man next to him. The little fat man beside him, who had just breathed a sigh of relief, was also confused. I downloaded it from the most popular forum. How could this happen? Grabbing the mouse from Lao's hand, the little fat man pulled the page down, selected another file, and clicked play. The next second, several cartoon sheep appeared in front of the two people, followed by pleasant goat, beautiful goat, lazy goat, boiling goat, slow sheep, soft sheep, red wolf and gray wolf. Quote. The little fat man and Liao were confused again. Chapter 71. The next morning, Wayne got up a rare early morning. Last night, he sang until the early hours of the morning to practice the song he would perform on stage today. Even now, he can't help but sway to the rhythm of the song when he walks. Wandering to the door of the fighting gym, Wayne saw the well-dressed Reina and the bearded Logan next to her from a distance. Good morning. Walking up to the two of them, Wayne said hello. Looking up at the venue, I saw that the entire venue was filled with students arriving one after another. There are actually not many students in Xavier Academy for Geniuses, just over 100. Even if they all came together, they wouldn't be able to fill the venue. So in fact, most of the venues are employees of some schools. For these ordinary people who do not reject mutants, the school's annual competition is equivalent to a free 4D blockbuster. It looks like you're well prepared. I'm looking forward to your performance tonight, Reina said with a smile as she watched Wayne's body swinging rhythmically. Logan on the side also laughed. He was also looking forward to what it would be like when Wayne, who was fighting extremely fiercely, would perform on stage. Ha ha ha, I'm the finale. Wayne scratched his head shyly. In fact, now, he no longer objects to performing on stage, but he still has some expectations in his heart. When the time comes, Logan is responsible for being the referee, and Wayne is responsible for ensuring the safety of the audience on the sidelines and avoiding accidental injuries. Raising her hand to look at the time, Reina decisively made arrangements for the two of them today, and then walked inside. Looking at each other, Wayne made a gesture of invitation towards Logan and followed the two of them in. The tasks of the three of them today are quite heavy. Since Professor, the three of them are still needed to take charge of the overall situation. Pa, pa, pa. Do. They walked into the first venue. Temporary staff were arranged in other venues to maintain order. They watched today's chief host Reina on the big screen. Watching the three people entering the venue, the students who had been waiting for a long time and the employees all started cheering, clapping and blowing whistles, and everyone's enthusiasm was ignited for a while. Hello everyone, without further ado, I now announce that this year's competition has officially begun. The first opening match will be between the team of the Big Demon King and the team of the Three Bald Brothers. Each year's competitions are interspersed with a team competition, an individual competition, and other types of competitions. Although there are many contestants, each group's competition actually only lasts a few minutes. After all, the venue has given restrictions. It's such a big piece of land, and everyone is working directly face to face. How long can you fight? Seeing Liao, Adonis, and Miaoji slowly walking forward, Wayne and the little fat man shouted to the three of them, "Come on." Since Wayne was brought over to serve as a staff member, Wayne turned around and arranged for the little fat man. Let the little fat man be responsible for the live broadcast. In order to allow the surrounding audience to better watch the game, Stan is responsible for the live video, and the little fat man is responsible for broadcasting Stan's video to the 4 large screens in the center of the venue. Are you nervous? Liao, who was walking at the front with a pair of dark circles under his eyes, suddenly asked the two people beside him. Last night, he and Little Fatty spent the whole night studying blockbusters. Little Fatty, who is known as the king of the internet, just downloaded the entire set of children's cartoons and couldn't find any serious movies. Meow. With a meow, Miaoji turned into an orange cat and rested on Lao's shoulder. Nervous. On the other side, Adonis replied without changing his expression. In fact, he was really nervous. After all, this kind of terrain places great restrictions on his abilities. He is more suitable for fighting in that kind of dark environment. In that kind of environment, Adonis can blend himself into the darkness at will. In this open, bright venue, Adonis can only rely on shadows. Opposite them, 3 opponents walked up at the same time, with the same bald heads, the same clothes, and even the same faces. Are these triplets? Looking at the 3 identical people, Wayne asked Jason, who ran over to him at some point. Yes, they have been in school for a few years, and their abilities are combined. Jason patiently explained. Because Wayne had been at the school only a short time, he was unfamiliar with many of the students and their abilities. But Jason was different. Except for some newcomers, he knew the abilities of almost every student, and he happened to act as the commentator for Wayne and Little Fatty. Fit. Wayne was slightly startled. Just when he was about to ask what kind of ability this was, suddenly the triplets on the field took each other's hands without saying a word. Then the 3 people seemed to have become souls, becoming transparent at the same time, and then slowly fused together. After a while, a 6-meter-tall giant appeared in the center of the venue. Pill. Looking at the 3-person-tall giant in front of him, Lao's face instantly turned pale with fright. His ability is very restrained against players who attack with energy, such as John and Bruce. But once he encountered someone who was doing it with his fists, he immediately stopped. He can't swallow other people into his stomach. Even if he has the ability to do this, he can't get over this hurdle in his heart. The last time Wayne swallowed a tongue, he couldn't eat for 3 days and 3 nights after he came back, and all the fat on his stomach was lost. I come. Seeing the giant starting to walk towards them, Adonis said something to Liao. As soon as he finished speaking, countless black lines suddenly stretched out from Adonis's shadow, like black pythons rushing towards the giant. What? The bald giant shouted and raised his huge fist to hit the motionless Adonis. At this moment, the black line extending from Adonis's shadow inserted into the giant's shadow from all directions. Suddenly, the giant's fist stopped less than 1 meter away from Adonis. The rising wind ruffled Adonis's hair, and his huge fist was still trembling in the air, as if he was in a stalemate with something. I need help. His neck was already covered with veins. After Adonis gritted his teeth and said something, 2 more black lines suddenly flew out of his shadow. However, it was not in the direction of the giant, but connected to the shadows of Liao and Miaoji. Which move is this? Feeling the sudden pressure on his body, Liao was slightly stunned. It seemed that he was in a tug of war with a huge force. Lend my strength. Looking at Liao in a daze, Adonis said again. This was his latest move, although Adonis usually kept silent. But in fact, he is the hardest working one in the team. He didn't play any role in the last mission, so he spent a few days after coming back. Adonis locked himself in a room alone and began to develop his abilities day and night. This is a method he has researched. By connecting his own shadow with the shadow of other people, the connected person can pass on his power to himself. In theory, this skill is very abnormal. As long as there are enough people connected, the power can grow infinitely. However, Adonis has not yet tested the number of people he has connected to. With Liao and Miaoji joining in, Adonis suddenly felt a lot more relaxed, but not long after, the three of them felt strenuous again. The combination of the three bald brothers opposite is not three. The power that the three of them can exert when combined is much higher than the combined power of the three of them. They can almost exert the power of 8 or 9 people. And because the three of them have had a strange telepathy since they were young, this giant composed of 3 people can easily concentrate on 3 tasks without interfering with each other when thinking. What? After a stalemate for a while, the giant suddenly roared again. In an instant, the huge fist broke free from Adonis' control, and was about to hit Adonis at the moment. Suddenly there was a suction force from the side, causing the fist to deviate at that moment, and smashed into the ground beside Adonis. Boom! After a loud noise, a big crater was made on the ground, and Adonis on the side took advantage of this moment to run in the direction of Liao. The sudden suction just now was the huge power that Liao opened his big mouth and connected to the different dimensions in his body in an instant. What should we do? Looking at Adonis running over in embarrassment, Liao asked hurriedly. Their methods only belong to the control system and cannot cause harm to the giant. If this continues, they will lose sooner or later. If they lose the opening match in such a disheartening manner, it will be an embarrassment to the team. Although he was either seeking death or on the road to death every day, unknowingly, the heartless Liao began to unconsciously regard himself as a member of the team and had a sense of belonging, which also made him do whatever he wanted. Before anything happens, I will subconsciously consider the impact on the team. Although due to coma, Liao did not see the scene that everyone envied yesterday, but as a member of the team, he suddenly wanted to win an honor for the team with his own abilities. Especially when he glanced at Wayne who was cheering for him in the audience, Liao subconsciously thought about Wayne's fist. The big man in front of him actually looked fierce, but his huge body was extremely bulky. Speed, Adonis suddenly said as he looked at the giant who raised his fist and rushed toward them again. Seeing the giant's heavy steps, Lao's eyes suddenly lit up slightly. After Adonis reminded him, he also discovered that this giant had a very obvious weakness, which was speed. Let's not stand together and spread out to affect his movements. As for attacking, glancing at the orange cat on his shoulder, Liao said. Can you do it, Miaoji? The little fat man had told him how Miaoji killed a saber-toothed tiger with a single grab that day. Although this orange cat just acts cute and sleeps every day, the transformed orange cat is no ordinary orange cat. This is an orange cat with the strength of an adult and very sharp claws. Therefore, Miaoji's lethality can even be compared with that of a saber-toothed tiger, but she lacks the self-healing function and has an introverted personality, so she rarely truly uses her strength. Meow. As if feeling the surrounding sights and the encouragement from Wayne and little Fatty, Miaoji suddenly jumped into the air and rushed towards the giant. We are in tandem. Seeing Miaoji rushing out, Liao said quickly. Then the two of them left Adonis to interfere from the front, while Liao ran away behind the giant. Bring it on. Seeing a fat orange cat rushing toward him, the giant finally said a human word, and then stretched out his big hand to catch the orange cat. However, as soon as his hand moved, Adonis used his shadow to control it steadily. This time Adonis did not choose to control the giant's whole body, but only controlled the hand that the giant stretched out. This is equivalent to him using his whole body strength to contend with one hand. Although it is still a bit difficult, he can at least persist for a while. Taking advantage of this period of time, Miaoji quickly ran to the giant's side, followed the controlled hand, and jumped to the giant's body. Get down here. One hand was controlled, and he watched the orange cat run towards him. The giant just wanted to use his other hand to pat her down, but the orange cat nimbly dodged her. When I tried to expel the orange cat again, the suction force that had just appeared was heard again. And the suction force this time is stronger than the last time. It was Liao who ran behind him and opened his mouth. During this period of time, Liao has not been idle. Although he has not developed new ways to use his powers, after careful consideration, he has also successfully improved his ability to control his powers. Now Liao can accurately control the suction force he emits to prevent his opponent's teammates from swallowing it up. Seeing that both of the giant's hands were restrained, Miaoji ran all the way to the giant's head, stretched out his plump paws, and hit the giant's face hard. Brush. 3 blood marks instantly appeared on the giant's face. Although there was no real damage, the pain still surged instantly. What? With a scream, the giant suddenly straightened up his huge body in pain and jumped towards Tiansheng. Boom. With the power of jumping, the giant's hands successfully got rid of control. No longer paying attention to the meows wandering around him, he took long steps and walked towards Adonis. It seemed that he had identified the opponent who was the first to attack him. Seeing the giant walking angrily towards Adonis, Liao cursed from behind and desperately increased the suction force from his mouth. However, due to the need to maintain a certain safe distance, when the suction force is transmitted to the giant's body, it is no longer very strong. It could only slightly slow down the progress of some giants towards Adonis. As he walked, the giant shook his head violently and threw Miao Kai from his head. Stretching out his claws and grabbing the giant's back, Miaoji tried to climb up again while maintaining his balance. The giant's body is too big, so Miaoji's little claws can only penetrate the giant's muscle layer every time and cannot cause any further substantial damage to it. Seeing the giant getting closer and closer, Adonis also began to panic. This feeling was just like the last time the toad's tongue flew towards him. After looking at Liao and Miaoji who were trying hard to hold the giant back, Adonis suddenly gritted his teeth. Since his teammates are all working hard, he can only fight once. Having made up his mind, Adonis suddenly raised his hands. The originally bright venue suddenly became dark for a moment. When people react, they are ready to rub their eyes to see if they are dazzled. Suddenly a scream sounded in the audience. Suddenly, everyone panicked, and everyone's shadow reflected on the ground by the light suddenly came to life. After twisting on the ground a few times, they quickly gathered towards Adonis in the stadium. For a moment, countless dark shadows gathered around Adonis. Even the headlights directly above them couldn't dispel the shadows. Adonis's complexion seemed a little pale. This move was a move he came up with just yesterday, but it seemed to consume a lot, so he hasn't used it yet. Especially controlling such a shadow at once, but in the current situation, he couldn't care too much. He couldn't accept that his first official battle ended in failure. He needed to prove that his strength was worthy of the envy of those students yesterday. What? The pale-faced Adonis suddenly shouted, as if he was forcibly activating his mental power. In an instant, a large shadow formed by the gathering of shadows began to crawl towards the sky, gradually turning from a plane into an object. Just like Adonis usually converting between human form and shadow, a large shadow on the ground suddenly turned into a staggering shadow giant. The body shape is even several heads taller than the giant formed by the 3 brothers. After the shadow giant appeared, he slowly raised his fist, which was as tall as a man. He looked at the giant running in front of him and punched him hard. Bang! The black fist hit the giant's face steadily, and the 6-meter-tall giant flew backwards like a kite with a broken string. After punching the giant of the 3 brothers away, the shadow giant imitated Wayne's behavior every time he fought. Before the opponent could stand firm, he took another step forward. Also a giant, the shadow giant is more flexible than the 3 fused brothers. He stepped in front of the giant and pushed the giant who was about to get up to the ground again. The shadow giant jumped into the sky, then arched his knees, aimed at the throat of the fallen giant, and fell down. Dazed by the series of attacks, the giant was about to stand up to resist, when he suddenly saw a huge black shadow in the sky falling towards him. With a horrified expression on their faces, the 3 brothers broke off the fusion in an instant. Boom! The shadow giant's knees still fell down, but the giant under him had already disintegrated, so it could only hit the floor heavily, once again creating a bigger hole on the floor than before, and raising a large of dust. One of the 3 brothers was near the impact point of the shadow giant after disintegration, so although he was not directly hit, the close impact and flying stone fragments hit him accurately, and he fainted immediately. After the shadow giant smashed a big hole into the ground, it had no energy left to attack again, and the whole person suddenly and quietly disappeared from people's sight. Adonis, who controlled the shadow giant, collapsed on the ground the moment the shadow giant disappeared, breathing heavily. He didn't have any strength in his body now, and he didn't even want to move his fingers. He just wanted to lie quietly on the ground. Although the move just now looked cool and powerful, it also consumed his energy horribly. But fortunately, he persisted and successfully defeated the giant. The next thing can be left to his teammates. Although Liao usually seemed heartless and Miaoji only seemed to be cute, at this moment, Adonis gave them 100% trust. And Liao and Miaoji did not live up to the trust given to them by their teammates. As the dust gradually dispersed, the remaining two of the three brothers were about to rush over to see their brothers. However, halfway through the run, an orange shadow suddenly rushed out from nowhere, grabbed one of them by the face, and started scratching wildly. For a moment, the bloody scene made many female students subconsciously cover their eyes. Seeing his other brother being attacked, the remaining bald man just turned around and wanted to catch the orange cat. Suddenly, a plump figure behind him rushed toward him quickly, and a round belly was placed firmly on his waist. He was knocked away all of a sudden, but it was not over yet. At the moment when he fell to the ground and wanted to get up, the plump figure appeared again, and he jumped up with all his strength, and then pressed hard on the bald man. Liao slowly climbed up from the bald man's body, looked at the unconscious bald man on the ground, and suddenly laughed. Then he ran to Adonis excitedly, pulled him up and said, "We won." On the other side, Miaoji turned back into a petite girl and ran to the side of the two of them. "Well, we won." Leaning weakly on Lao's belly, Adonis turned his head and looked down at Wayne and the little fat man who were cheering them on, and suddenly showed a rare smile. The audience at the scene came to their senses at this time and burst into warm applause, accompanied by bursts of cheers. The winner of today's opening match is the Demon King's team. The second match will begin in 10 minutes. Seeing that the battle was settled, Reina picked up the microphone and walked to the host's high platform nearby, announcing loudly to the surroundings. In fact, the role of host is usually played by Chin. Although Reina is usually a teacher, she doesn't have much experience in hosting, so her speech is somewhat unnatural. Since she felt a little unnatural, Lena would just keep the story short. On the one hand, it could also speed up the process of today's game and save game time. Since the number of applicants this time exceeded the standard and time was tight, although it was temporarily decided to divide the competition into 3 days and today was just the preliminary round, there was still not enough time. That shadow giant just now was so cool. Seeing Liao and Miaoji helping the weak Adonis walk off the field, the little fat man hurried over to congratulate him. The moment the shadow giant appeared, Wayne and the little fat man couldn't help but exclaimed. Unexpectedly, Adonis, who had been silent all this time, would actually come up with a great trick without telling everyone. Adonis nodded silently without speaking. After leaving the competition field, he became the taciturn young man again. Ha 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 ha, I told you, I'm just that strong. Liao, who supported Adonis, enjoyed the adoring eyes of the audience while shamelessly taking the credit for himself. Hearing this, the little fat man wanted to retort, but thinking about his performance yesterday, he immediately closed his mouth consciously. The little fat man who has always been in the internet industry has never thought that the first pitfall he encountered on the internet was actually looking for a blockbuster movie. I can only sigh at how broad and profound the netizens from the ancient Oriental country are, with all kinds of tricks one after another. What's wrong with you? The little fat man's silence didn't mean that Wayne would let Liao be so arrogant. Glancing at Liao, Wayne said disdainfully. Although Wayne can also see that Lao's ability has improved to a certain extent, compared with Adonis, the gap is still too big. Miaoji did really well. Turning to look at Miaoji, Wayne touched Miaoji's hair and said proudly. Quote. Looking at the very warm picture of Miaoji and Wayne, Liao was speechless. The difference in treatment is too great. Can't compare, can't compare. After talking for a while, Wayne shrugged helplessly as Reina walked onto the hosting stage again. I'm going to start working. You guys go to the back and take a rest. Refresh yourself. We have a performance tonight. As the trio returned to the backcourt to rest, Wayne and Fatty remained in the arena, where they needed to continue their work. Today's second game was an individual battle. Neither player was very familiar with Wayne, so he didn't have much time to watch the pair of rookies peck each other. "Are you really not going to join the other groups that will be waiting for you?" Wayne asked after looking at the fat man sitting slumped aside. In fact, although every year's competition is divided into combat groups and other groups, only the combat groups are ranked, while other groups have different abilities and cannot be compared at all. Even the names can only be given by a general, other group. Therefore, the purpose of other groups is mainly for everyone to show each other the various uses of their abilities. After all, some students' abilities are not suitable for combat at all. But in order to avoid the resentment caused by watching students from other combat groups dominate the competition, Professor X cleverly created this other group. The main purpose is to provide these students whose abilities are not suitable for fighting with an opportunity to show off in front of everyone and show off. The little fat man had been looking forward to being able to show off his skills today. However, this morning, the fat man with a tired face suddenly came to Wayne and said that he was ready to give up today's performance. Wayne was surprised on the spot. After knowing Little Fatty for so many years, how could he not understand Little Fatty's personality? How could Little Fatty give up such an opportunity to be in the limelight? After careful questioning, the little fat man revealed a little bit of the reason. It seemed that it was because he was eaten by a Chinese netizen last night. This made Wayne stand in awe of the Chinese netizens who had never met him before. You must know that the little fat man is invincible in the United States. But after Wayne thought of one of his team members, he suddenly couldn't figure out why Liao would be so unreliable if they were all Chinese. After an unknown amount of time, the cheers from the surrounding audience gradually weakened, and even the sound of applause became somewhat sparse. Rubbing his dull eyes, Wayne subconsciously wanted to look up at the sky, but all he could see was the silver-black ceiling. "What time is it? Why isn't it finished yet?" Wayne asked a little irritably. He felt that he had already stood as much as he usually did in a month today, but today's game seemed to last for a long time. "It'll be the last one soon." The little fat man yawned and replied. Compared to Wayne, the little fat man is actually more sleepy. After all, he had a battle of wits with Chinese netizens last night. As soon as the words fell, Reina walked onto the hosting stage again in high spirits. It seemed that she did not feel tired after hosting for a whole day. Happy time is short-lived. Now let's invite Simba from other groups to the last group today. Seeing Reina walking towards him after finishing speaking, Wayne asked, "When does the evening show start?" He has watched countless performances from other groups today. It was a bit of a novelty at first, but after watching too many performances, it turned into torture. For example, the people in the previous group have the ability to change their faces, but they are not like Mystique. They can only change the color of their own faces. After taking the stage, the performance changed colors for a full 10 minutes, first red, then green, then yellow. After a while, it seemed to become a little more difficult, and the combination of red, white, red and yellow began. Wayne's face turned green when he saw it. "You can go get ready first. Today's game is a bit late," Reina said after looking at the watch on her hand. "The last group is the other groups, and nothing will happen that threatens the safety of others. Come on." After hearing Reina's words, Wayne suddenly became energetic, pulled up Liao beside him, and left the venue as if he was running away. After leaving the venue, Wayne looked up and saw that the lights were already on in the college, and a crescent moon hung in the night sky. I rushed straight to the concert venue and soon saw a group of staff busy at the venue from a distance. These are all volunteers recruited by Liao and Fatty. After all, such a big stage cannot be set up by just two people. Is there anything else you need help with? Walking forward quickly, Wayne asked a volunteer carrying an iron frame. No, all the arrangements have been completed. Now we just need to take away these extra equipment, said the volunteer. Thank you. Fine. Watching the volunteers walking away with the iron frame, Wayne took out his mobile phone and checked the time, then said to the fat man next to him, "There's still an hour left to start. I'll go get ready first. Remember to help me take photos that look cool." Okay. Little Fatty has no program to perform today, and his task is to take photos for Wayne. As an internet celebrity with more than 1 million followers, Wayne has not posted on Instagram for a week. In order to give back to his fans, Wayne decided to let them experience his singing voice tonight. An hour passed in a hurry, and the competition in the fighting gym was already over. A large group of spectators came from over there, and the originally deserted concert scene suddenly became lively. After all, after watching a whole day of battles and all kinds of weird powers, the audience needs to follow the music to soothe their emotions. Hello everyone, I am today's host. The hands on the clock had just crossed 9 o'clock, and Rina, wearing a red cheongsam, appeared in everyone's sight again. Since this time it will be organized by Liao, the style and theme of the entire concert are more inclined to the Chinese classical style. Seeing that the tight-fitting cheongsam perfectly highlighted Reina's figure, Liao in the background subconsciously widened his eyes and secretly swallowed his saliva. Looking like a loser, Wayne, who was also staying backstage, made a speechless complaint. Liao's little moves obviously couldn't be hidden from the visually enhanced Wayne. I'm nervous, I'm going to play soon. The little move was discovered, and after Liao explained awkwardly, he quickly turned his eyes away. Among the team members, only Wayne and Liao had a program to praise them tonight. And it happens to be the beginning and the end, the opening song and the finale. Next, I would like to invite Liao to bring you a song from his hometown. As the announcement at the front desk ended, Liao, wearing a formal suit, walked stiffly to the center of the stage. Hello everyone, I am Liao. Today I will bring you a song called Zhongnan Leather Factory. I hope you like it. Looking at the countless pairs of eyes in the audience, Liao was a little nervous and even stammered when he spoke. Ha ha ha. As the audience applauded, Liao glanced at the backstage, and a dynamic rhythm suddenly came from the speakers. Liao on the stage also began to twist his fat waist and dance to the rhythm. As a Chinese, and as a Zhejiang native, he feels he has an obligation to promote the culture of his hometown to the world stage. Look at the audience of different skin colors below: white skin, yellow skin, black skin, blue skin. Liao suddenly felt that he was not simply performing on stage. He is contributing to the promotion of his hometown culture. At this moment, he is not fighting alone. At this moment, Liao seemed to be possessed by Jack Ma. In an instant, all the tension and anxiety disappeared. Following the dynamic rhythm, Liao jumped out of his own style, with a fat belly swaying in the air. As the rhythm progressed, Liao finally opened his mouth. This time, what came from his mouth was no longer suction, but Liao's love for his hometown. Zhejiang Wenzhou Zhongnan Leather Factory closed down. Zhongnan Leather Factory, the largest leather factory in Wenzhou, Zhejiang, closed down. Fluent Chinese came from Liao's mouth. Although the people in the audience could not understand what he was singing, their bodies still swayed involuntarily to the dynamic rhythm. The cooperation of the audience seemed to give Liao greater encouragement. He immediately shook off his suit jacket and strode to the auditorium wearing the shirt underneath. The fool, Huang He, the boss eats, drinks, whores, gambles, eats, drinks, whores, and gambles. He owed 3.5 million and ran away with his sister-in-law. Liao's performance once again ignited the already lively scene. In an instant, everyone became excited. The carnival broke out at the concert, scaring away many small animals in the forest. You don't pay me wages, you pay me back my hard-earned money. Return my hard-earned money. With Liao's last roar, the whole song finally ended. Amid the cheers of the crowd, Liao successfully ended his debut and successfully raised the atmosphere of the concert to the first place. What do his lyrics mean? Looking at Liao, who was having fun on the stage, Wayne turned around and asked the fat guy next to him. The little fat man was still immersed in the rhythm just now, shaking his body while perfunctory ly. Probably because his hometown is beautiful. Wayne nodded, looking forward to his performance time even more. However, the students and teachers here who were immersed in the concert did not notice that a dozen black Chevrolets were parked next to the woods a few kilometers away from the school. Groups of heavily armed soldiers quickly ran out of the car. After a while, all the soldiers lined up on the spot, and then a man suddenly walked out of the car at the front. Looking at the neatly arranged soldiers, the man said, "The target is Xavier Academy for Geniuses. Everyone, be careful not to expose your whereabouts. Now, send out." Time goes back a day. Just as Magneto and Professor. In an unknown secret base. In the dim light, you can vaguely see what's going on inside. A middle-aged man with a few silver threads on his forehead, wearing a straight formal suit, was sitting in front of a huge conference table. This huge round table can accommodate a dozen people sitting at the same time, but at this time there are only 2 seats at the end and 1 at the end. The person sitting at the head of the table was the middle-aged man in formal attire, and the person sitting at the end of the table was a man with only 1 hand. These 2 people were obviously Boone and Francis. Francis was holding a tablet in his one hand and giving his report. At noon today, Magneto and Professor. That idiot Stryker was blinded by his own ambition and wanted to single-handedly wipe out the entire mutant population. It's just a matter of sooner or later that day will come. Listening to Francis's report, Boone said slowly. There was no surprise at all. Boone had contacted Stryker on behalf of the organization a few years ago, but Stryker was as stubborn as a stinking stone in the toilet. It directly rejected the good intentions of the organization, so over the years, the organization has been intentionally or unintentionally revealing some information about Stryker to the mutants, using him as the organization's scapegoat. So Boone was not surprised when he heard that Stryker's research base had been attacked. He had always been responsible for revealing Stryker's information in the organization. It's just that he didn't tell the subordinate in front of him these things. Ever since Francis let Wayne go one after another, Boone had a little doubt about Francis's ability. However, due to Francis's loyalty, he did not punish him too seriously. But since then, Francis has also been excluded from his core team. He needs loyal subordinates, but he does not need a subordinate who is only loyal but not capable. Anyone who stands in the way of the organization will not end well. Looking at Francis, who said nothing, a cold light flashed in Boone's eyes. This time, leaking Stryker's information to Magneto was not just for borrowing money to kill people, he also had a more important purpose. At this moment, there were suddenly several knocks on the door outside the conference room. "Come in," Boone said to the outside. "Hail Hydra." A man and a woman came in from outside. When they saw Boone, they shouted a slogan in unison. "Hail Hydra, what's going on with Stryker, Ada?" Boone looked at the woman who had just walked in. Glancing at Francis, whose expression suddenly turned ugly, Ada said to Boone. "Before Magneto and Professor. Oh, what did that idiot study?" Boone snorted, suddenly becoming interested. To be honest, his impression of Stryker had always been that of a loser who even used his own son for research. The arrangement this time was also a sudden whim. "I wanted to try my luck to see if I could recycle the waste. I didn't expect it to succeed. In addition to the hallucinogens you have always looked down on, we found information about inhibitors of mutant abilities and a small amount of finished products." Ada said respectfully. She is Boone's chief scientist and has been responsible for researching mutants. But before that, Boone's favorite subordinate was Francis, who had become disabled. Francis didn't know why, but as a layman, he was keen on studying mutants. He relied on his power within the organization to plunder Ada's research resources. Previously, Ada could only swallow her anger because of Francis's strength. However, overnight, the originally popular Francis became a cripple that no one wanted. This makes Ada secretly happy. In addition, she successfully stole the inhibitor this time, which allows her to have more say in front of Boone. Inhibitor effective. Boone was secretly happy, but outwardly there was no change at all. "We conducted experiments on mutants in Stryker's laboratory. The drug will spread throughout the mutant's body within 10 seconds after injection, ensuring that the mutant's ability will lose its effectiveness within a week. Can't it be permanently invalid?" Boone frowned when he heard it was only a week. "Based on the relevant information obtained, I am confident that I will be able to make a permanent potion within a year." Ada had been carefully observing the changes in Boone's expression after coming in. At this moment, she saw Boone frowning and said quickly, "Ha ha ha ha, you are very good, Ada." Boone's expression changed instantly, as if he was not the one frowning just now. "Henry, what's going on there?" Boone looked at the man who came in with him again. "The agents we arranged disguised themselves as ruffians and had contact with Wolverine. The positioning device mixed in the blood has helped us confirm the location of Xavier Academy for Geniuses." Henry replied angrily. He has always played the role of a thug here in Boone and does not like to fight for power like others. His only hobby is listening to his opponents wailing at his feet. Very good. The good news that came one after another made Boone, who was thinking deeply, couldn't help but feel a little excited. Get ready for action. There is no room for failure in this mission. He had been planning for this day for several months. He had started planning secretly as early as when he knew through some special channels that Wayne was going to Xavier Academy for the Gifted. Wayne was his main target for this operation. Because Wolverine has the ability to heal himself, many mutant research organizations are particularly fond of his genes, including Boone. But since Boone obtained Wayne's genes, he no longer bothered to pursue inferior genes like Wolverine. At the beginning, he also thought that Wayne's gene was just an ordinary gene containing a self-healing factor, and planned to use it as a backup for Wolverine's gene. But after some research, his research team unexpectedly discovered that Wayne's genes were completely different from Wolverine's genes. Wayne's genes contain some kind of higher-level unknown substance, but due to limitations of technology and materials, Wayne's genes have been used up before the reason can be found out. As one of the top leaders of the organization, Boone has higher requirements for himself. He wants to make more contributions to his organization and achieve the organization's great goals. So since there are not enough genetic samples for research, he wants Wayne to capture him again. He believed that as long as he could study the secrets of Wayne's genes, he would be able to achieve a result that would transcend the times. In order to achieve this goal, he did not hesitate to use Stryker as bait to allow Professor X to temporarily leave the academy. He did not hesitate to expose his own existence, but also took advantage of this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to attack Xavier Academy of Geniuses. At this time, everyone at Xavier Academy for Geniuses was still looking forward to the next day's competition. Wayne was also practicing the song he was going to perform over and over again. Little did he know that the danger had quietly come. Under the moonlight, dozens of soldiers wearing black combat uniforms quietly entered the quiet forest like daggers hidden in the night. Under the leadership of Henry, the soldiers gradually spread out in the forest. They did not move very fast, but they did not make any sound, like a group of silent ghosts floating in the forest. As Boone's top thug, Henry's usual speaking and acting style may seem rude, but as long as he is performing tasks, he will show his calm side. According to the news they received from the organization, Professor X and Magneto will not return to the academy until tomorrow morning at the earliest. Therefore, they did not need to march quickly. Instead, they adopted a gradual approach and approached their goal step by step. As long as they can successfully avoid the academy's spies and catch the opponent by surprise, their chances of success will increase by 1 point. The danger was approaching step by step, but Wayne and the others did not pose any threat. Instead, they devoted themselves wholeheartedly to today's concert. Even Wayne's always powerful sixth sense seemed to have slackened due to the strong atmosphere of the music festival. 2 hours flew by. It's your turn in 2 more, Wayne. Backstage, Liao looked at Wayne, who was nervously reciting the lyrics with a relaxed expression. Are you in need of cleaning up again? Wayne glanced at Liao. After beating Liao last time, Wayne suddenly discovered that Liao's personality was actually like those naughty kids who needed to be dealt with when he was a child. If he didn't beat him for a day, he would fight with you. This time Wayne sang a Chinese song, so the lyrics were a bit difficult for him. Until now, Wayne's pronunciation is still somewhat substandard. You can add a little bit of original sound at the back and make the volume a little lower, so it sounds more normal. The little fat man on the side looked at Wayne's anxious look and said. He understood how much Wayne valued this performance. Although Wayne was very repelled by the performance at the beginning, Wayne gradually seemed to find fun in it. Naturally, he became more attentive. Okay, I'll do as you say. Taking a deep breath, Wayne felt that he was not as nervous as he was now when he faced Magneto last time. After a while, Raina's announcement suddenly came from outside. Happy times are short-lived. Here is the last song of the day. I invite you to sing it, Wayne. After adjusting his clothes in the mirror again, Wayne walked towards the front desk with big steps. Seeing the handsome Wayne wearing a decent suit and walking up from the backstage with elegant steps, the female students and aunts below went crazy instantly. Wayne, who usually likes to dress up in shorts and slippers, is even more charming in a suit. Waves of girls' screams kept coming from the crowd. Someone shouted Wayne's name. Suddenly, everyone seemed to have a plan and shouted in unison. Wayne, Wayne, Wayne. Wayne, who had just walked up, was suddenly confused when he saw the scene in front of him. When did you become so popular in school? In fact, since Wayne defeated Wolverine in the fighting arena, Wayne has become the idol of most boys and girls in the academy. Because the boys admired Wayne's powerful force, he first beat up Colossus, and now he also beat the teacher-level Wolverine to the ground. A series of achievements made the boys in the school wish that these things had happened to them. Those female fans are attracted by Wayne's handsome appearance. Although Wayne has been at the school for more than 2 months, as a local, except for class and meals, Wayne spends most of his time by himself, lying in the dormitory and rarely showing up outside. The battle with Wolverine attracted the attention of most students in the school. Some girls who had never seen Wayne were suddenly surprised to find that a handsome guy had arrived in the school. Moreover, this handsome boy is not only handsome, but also very powerful. In an instant, Wayne gained a large number of female fans, ranging from an 8-year-old girl who just entered school to an old cleaning lady who cleans the school toilets. Hello everyone. After being stunned for a moment, Wayne imitated the way a star would perform a concert and raised his hand to say hello to the audience. Suddenly the audience in the audience was excited again. Not only did everyone start shouting Wayne's name, but some female fans who had prepared flowers in advance, seeing that they couldn't squeeze into the first row, simply threw the flowers towards the stage. For a moment, countless flowers flew towards Wayne, as if the devil had turned into a flower fairy. As the background music started playing in the background, Wayne's eyes suddenly froze when he just picked up the microphone and was about to sing. A needle-like object was mixed in the flowers and flew towards me on the stage. Shish! Just as the needle was about to hit Wayne's arm, Wayne's hand holding the microphone suddenly waved, and the needle pierced the microphone. If Wayne had just arrived at Xavier Academy for the Gifted, Wayne might not have been able to achieve such reflexes and speed. But with the emergence of the magical power in his body, Wayne's qualities in all aspects have grown by leaps and bounds during this period. Blocking a needle that was not as fast as a bullet was now a piece of cake for Wayne. Which shameless person wants to mess with me? Looking at the syringe in his hand, Wayne subconsciously thought of John. After all, he was the only one in the college who had a grudge against him. But then I thought about it, John should be following Magneto as his little brother now, and there was no way he would show up in school. Before Wayne could figure it out, with his abnormal vision, Wayne suddenly saw more needles flying from outside the school wall. However, this time the target is no longer himself, but the carnival crowd below. This time, in order to ensure that the venue was large enough, the stage was built right on the edge of the school. So for a while, no one at the scene noticed this sudden attack except Wayne. At the same time, the sound of the song Wayne performed today came from the speakers. It's just different from what they said before. Wayne and the others had agreed to only play a little bit of the original sound to ensure that Wayne's voice could cover it up. But what was playing now was obviously a complete song, without Wayne needing to speak at all, and the background music and singing all came together. Stop! Wayne yelled into the phone. However, Wayne's voice did not come from the speakers. The microphone has been punctured by a needle. Stop now! Seeing the dozens of students at the end of the field who had been hit by needles collapse to the ground, while the rest of the audience still had no idea, Wayne quickly shouted to the backstage. I advise you not to seek death. Backstage, the little fat man looked expressionlessly at Liao, who was seeking death because of his strength. Adonis and Miaoji looked at Lao's arousing act with surprised expressions. Originally, the little fat man did as promised and adjusted the voice of the original singer to a suitable volume, but Liao on the side suddenly felt a cramp. The original tone must be turned to the maximum. He, it's okay, it's okay. With a look of excitement on his face, Liao turned up the music to the maximum volume and waved his hand nonchalantly. For Liao, who is rising like a star in the world of death. The music was still loud, and Wayne's shouts seemed to be drowned in the music. It was the first time for the audience below to hear this song, and they couldn't figure out whether it was Wayne who sang it or the original singer. Anyway, they were all having fun in the audience. After dozens of syringes flew over, soldiers wearing black combat uniforms began to climb over the school wall. Generally speaking, a 3-meter-high courtyard wall is enough to block ordinary people, but at this moment, these courtyard walls are like a 30-c soil slope to these soldiers, and they can climb over with a light jump. Looking at the guns carried by these soldiers, Wayne didn't bother to notify others, just threw away the broken microphone in his hand and ran towards the audience. Wow! Seeing Wayne jump down into the audience, the surrounding audience thought that Wayne was coming off the stage to liven up the atmosphere like Liao did, and immediately surrounded Wayne with great support. One by one with each hand, Wayne shook the people in front of him away one by one like he was pulling carrots from the ground. Anyway, it was so noisy here that even if they were thrown away, someone would catch him. When Wayne finally squeezed out of the crowd, some onlookers gradually realized something was wrong. A group of unfamiliar soldiers had already stood in a row and were slowly approaching them. What happened? Who are they? Instantly, a feeling called panic began to spread among the carnival crowd. The students or employees who were partying to the music were swaying to the music 1 second, but suddenly became quiet the next second. Not to mention those employees who were ordinary people. As ordinary workers, they had never seen such a scene before. Although those students with superpowers have hidden power far beyond that of ordinary soldiers, their first reaction after seeing the soldiers was not to resist and fight, but to panic. The onlookers, who were far more numerous than the soldiers, were forced to retreat. They did not have the courage to confront the soldiers head-on. On the other hand, although there were only a few dozen soldiers on the opposite side, these soldiers had very rich combat experience. Facing the slowly retreating crowd, they did not fire directly. Instead, he patiently waited for his leader's orders. Just like after seeing that the prey has been caught, the experienced hunter is not in a hurry to take the prey into his bag. Instead, he carefully observes whether the situation will change. Henry is such an experienced hunter. Facing a large number of mutants, he does not need to attack forcefully from the beginning to shut down this group of already timid mutants. Rabbits will bite when they are anxious, and a blind attack will inevitably cause a strong backlash. In order to ensure that this mission is foolproof, he needs to slowly push the enemy to a dead end and scare them out of fear. At that time, he will reap the rewards of hunting. He knew that fear was a very contagious emotion. At this moment, the situation suddenly changed. However, this change was not what Henry expected. The slowly retreating crowd was suddenly separated, and a gap 1 person wide appeared in the middle. A black shadow flashed through the gap. The soldier closest to the crowd felt that his eyes were blurred. Wayne suddenly appeared in front of him. Before he could react, the next moment he felt like he was hit by a bullet. The flying baseball and the body flew directly into the forest dozens of meters away. At this time, Rena, Wolverine and the team members backstage also discovered the situation here and rushed over. Shot. Henry, who was hiding at the end, saw one of his men turn into a meteor, and decisively gave orders to the remaining troops. For a time, countless bullets were fired at the dark crowd. In order to target mutants, Boone specifically asked Ada to expedite the development of a batch of guns capable of firing syringes. All the first batch of ability inhibitors seized from Stryker were equipped for the soldiers participating in the war. However, due to the limited quantity, Henry had to use sparingly at this time. If I had known I had just done the test, I wouldn't have needed so much. In the corner where no one found him, Henry whispered to himself. Although Ada claimed that this potion could temporarily suppress the X gene of mutants, as a commander, Henry only believed in himself on the battlefield. So before, he ordered his subordinates to shoot 30 rounds to test the effect. However, now looking at the mutants pouring out on the opposite side, and thinking about the 50 potions left, Henry couldn't help but regret it. Base. Logan, who was the first to arrive, had already run behind a soldier in the dark before the soldiers opened fire. The moment the soldier raised his gun, he pierced the soldier's heart with his claws. Following closely behind was Reyna. Since she was the host today and needed to wear high heels, Gina was much slower than Logan. When Gina arrived, the soldiers on the opposite side had already fired a round. Looking at her companions lying in a pool of blood beside her and the second round of missiles flying towards her, a bright yellow flash suddenly flashed in Reyna's eyes. A huge orange light curtain suddenly appeared between the soldiers and the audience. All the bullets turned around the moment they hit the light curtain and flew in the direction they came from. Call out. Just after breaking the soldier's spine with a fist, Wayne suddenly felt a chill behind him and a bullet hit his back. Wayne was stunned for a moment. "Aren't you surrounded by friendly forces behind you?" Wayne looked back and saw a vast orange light curtain standing in front of Reyna, intercepting all the opponent's firepower alone. However, the price is that Wayne and Logan, who rushed into the enemy crowd, were faced with being attacked from both sides. In front of him were the bullets fired by the soldier, and behind him were the bullets rebounded by Reyna. At this time, the members of the team and several other students who had finally summoned up the courage finally arrived at the scene. Looking at the battlefield where ammunition was splashing, they were attracted by the dazzling light curtain before they had time to sigh. "Is this Reyna's ability?" The little fat man looked at the light screen and said. "It seems like it's none of our business anymore. Can we leave here?" Liao looked at Wayne, who was slaughtering soldiers in the distance, thought about what he had done, and felt a slight twitch in his heart. He looked at the strange light curtain that suddenly appeared on the opposite side, blocking all his attacks. A soldier took out a remote-controlled bomb from his waist, held the remote control in one hand, threw the bomb with the other hand, and pressed the button in his hand when the bomb was about to touch the light curtain. Boom! The bomb exploded near the light curtain, and the violent shock wave caused the originally bright light curtain to fluctuate like water ripples. The soldiers nearby followed suit and put down their machine guns, picked up the remote-controlled bombs on their waists and threw them towards the light curtain. For a time, the sound of the explosion drowned out the noise of the battlefield. Boom! There was a soft sound, and a crack appeared on the orange light curtain. Then, like glass that had been hit by an unbearable impact, the light curtain turned into scattered debris in the surprised eyes of the little fat man and others. The moment the light curtain shattered, Reyna turned over and fell straight back. The moment Reyna was about to fall to the ground, Miaoji, who was closest to her, quickly took a step forward and quickly supported Reyna's body. Looking at Reyna, who had lost consciousness, Miaoji picked her up and took advantage of the chaos and ran towards the back. "I'll take her to a safe place first." Without the resistance of the orange light curtain, bursts of gunfire rang out again from the opposite side, like cutting straw, and the college staff and panicked students fell down in rows. "I'm going." After glancing at the soldiers on the opposite side, Adonis turned into a black shadow and rushed over, leaving Liao and the little fat man behind to avoid the bullets around them. "I come." Blocking the little fat man behind him, Liao opened his big mouth. Suddenly, the trajectories of all bullets within a radius of 10 meters suddenly changed, and they were all sucked into his extra-dimensional space. On the other side, Bob, who finally arrived, put his hands on the ground. White smoke rose from his body, and a thick ice wall rose from the ground, perfectly blocking the area that the little fat man could not take care of. After kicking a soldier away again, Wayne looked back and saw that the two of them worked together to temporarily block the soldiers' attack, and he was immediately relieved. Suddenly, Wayne's eyes changed and he saw a nearby soldier who seemed to want to imitate what he had just done and took out a bomb from his waist. Shish! Turning into black shadows again, under the cover of night, Wayne's speed was so fast that ordinary eyes could not keep up. Before the soldier could take out the bomb's remote control, Wayne appeared in front of him, reached out and grabbed the soldier's arm, and threw it towards a soldier on the other side. Suddenly, the soldier hit his teammate like a cannonball, and the other soldier was carried backwards by the high-speed collision. At the moment of the collision, both men's muscles and bones were broken at the same time, and they fell to the ground like a scattered bag of garbage. With no worries, Wayne never stopped for a moment. Every second he would suddenly appear behind a soldier and kill him with one blow. With the song still playing on the stereo, Wayne suddenly felt like he was killing people and had a rhythm. While killing people, he could not help but sing along with the melody. A hand suddenly stretched out and raised a soldier's neck, and Wayne sang along. "How lonely it is to be invincible." Quote. The soldier was about to resist when he suddenly noticed that the boy who attacked him seemed to be chanting something rhythmically. Just as he was about to listen carefully, Wayne's hand suddenly became stronger. Throwing the body aside like trash, Wayne moved and appeared behind another soldier again. He grabbed the soldier's head and pulled it hard like he was taking apart a toy. Taking a step back, nimbly avoiding the splash of blood, Wayne continued to sing. How empty is invincibility. Turning to the next target again, Wayne's song floated around the battlefield. Alone at the top, the cold wind kept blowing. Quote, like a death song, as long as every soldier hears Wayne's singing, death awaits him the next second. As Wayne went on a killing spree, the surrounding soldiers collapsed. Although there were 3 people rushing over from the opposite side, whether it was Logan or Adonis when they were killing people, the soldiers were able to use their superb fighting skills to provide some resistance, and they also knew how they died. The surrounding soldiers can also clearly see the murderer's figure, and can also provide some help to their companions. But it was different here in Wayne. The soldiers in this area could only see a black shadow running around among them. As soon as this black shadow stops, it proves that another teammate has been killed. And whenever other soldiers were about to take advantage of the opportunity that their teammates had given their lives for, and take advantage of the moment when Wayne killed someone to shoot, they would find that the black shadow seemed to pause for less than a second. As soon as they pulled the trigger, the black shadow had already disappeared from its original position. For a moment, the soldiers in this area were a little scared. A soldier watched his teammates fall one by one in the hands of the black shadow, barely calmed down the fear in his heart, and was just about to continue fighting. Suddenly, a singing voice came from far to near. Suddenly, the soldier who had just settled down let out a howl like a reflex. It wasn't a demonstration, but just a direct fright from Wayne. Throwing away the machine gun in his hand, the soldier was about to turn around and leave this hell on earth, when suddenly a clenched hand passed through his back with a pop sound. Shaking his arm hard twice and looking at his blood-stained right hand, Wayne rushed to the next target before he could feel sick. As Wayne rushes around, Wayne's abilities seem to be integrating with his body at a faster pace. Every time a soldier's life was taken away, Wayne felt that the mysterious power in his body became stronger. It feels different from basking in the sun. Every time he basks in the sun, Wayne can feel the power in his body, like a seed full of vitality, slowly absorbing the warmth and energy of the sun, slowly growing and sprouting. The feeling of killing people is like that of the mobile game that Liao recommended to him in the front-end time. There is a coon in his body, and he needs to constantly devour other lives to upgrade his coon. But it can be clearly felt that the growth rate of this power when killing people far exceeds the growth rate of Wayne's sunshine. At the same time, as the energy in his body increased bit by bit, Wayne slowly began to feel changes in himself. In the past, although his strength was very powerful, he would definitely not be able to punch through a person's chest. But just now, he could do this easily, although the consequence was that his entire right hand was still sticky. And through Wayne's continuous killings, he has clearly sensed the changes in the mentality of all the soldiers in this area. At the beginning, although Wayne killed 3 soldiers instantly, other soldiers around him were still able to react and respond in a decent manner. Although these responses are of no use, at least they are still resisting. As the number of lives taken away by Wayne increased to about 20, the surrounding soldiers seemed to slowly give up their resistance. No more trying to stop Wayne, no more trying to find a way to deal with it. Whenever Wayne quickly came to a soldier, the soldier felt like Timo in the game 010. He looked into the grass and found a 100 Dima squatting inside, driving towards him with his cue. Come the same. Just take your hands off the keyboard and give up resistance. Another soldier is killed, the music comes to an end, and Wayne sings his last line. My loneliness, endless loneliness. Quote, raising his head, Wayne looked around. Almost all the soldiers in this area were slaughtered by him, and only a few soldiers in 2s and 3s were left running away in confusion. Even if Wayne stops now, the game is offline, and he stands there thinking about life. The surviving soldiers did not think about taking the opportunity to fight back, but ran in the direction of Logan and Adonis. While running, these soldiers comforted themselves and said, we are not escaping, we are just going to support the brothers over there. After getting a break, Wayne stood there and took a breath. The high-intensity fighting just now made him feel a little tired. It seems that the energy in the body not only improves Wayne's strength, but also consumes a lot of Wayne's physical strength, seriously affecting Wayne's battery life. Wayne, who could have fought all day, was already unable to move for more than 10 minutes. Looking at the direction of the stage, under the leadership of Liao and Bob, more and more students began to regain their courage. Relying on the barrier built by the 2 of them with their own abilities, they randomly used their own powers to attack the opposite side. The little fat man hid behind and used his own power to connect to the speaker equipment. The little fat man's voice kept coming from the speakers, as if he was sitting and mobilizing. Don't panic, everyone. Our campus is experiencing an unprecedented disaster. We need to survive this disaster together. Everyone should contribute their part. Relying on his perverted vision, Wayne even saw the face-changing contestant among the rebellious students. Mixed in a group of students, the face-changing contestant faced the soldier on the opposite side, with the colors on his face constantly changing, staring straight in one direction. Wayne followed the face-changing contestant's gaze and saw that a soldier's face seemed to change color along with the face-changing contestant's face. However, the change in color on his face did not have any impact on the soldier. Even the soldier himself did not notice that his face turned blue and yellow for a while. Although it did not have any impact on the soldiers, the face-changing contestants did not seem to be discouraged and still worked hard to change their faces, not only themselves but also with their opponents. This player really responded positively to the call. Wayne sighed silently. Boom. Just as Wayne was about to continue massacring the attacking soldiers, suddenly a blue lightning struck Wayne from the darkness. His body subconsciously twisted to the left, but Wayne's arm was still brushed by lightning, and his carefully dressed hair instantly stood up. The first time he was struck by lightning, Wayne did not think that he was being attacked. Instead, he looked up at the starry night sky. Is this just pretending to be struck by lightning? There were no dark clouds in sight, and Wayne suddenly felt uncomfortable. The lyrics of the song just now are indeed a bit pretentious. Singing while killing people is indeed a bit pretentious. But Wayne thinks that he has not yet reached the point of being struck by lightning. Just as Wayne was thinking wildly, several more bolts of lightning shot out of the darkness. However, Wayne, who had already been hacked once, was not struck again. His whole body flashed to the side, and Wayne perfectly dodged the lightning attack. Looking in the direction of the lightning, Wayne didn't find any figure. Come out, a saint will not be defeated twice by the same move. This line was something Wayne saw in an anime today. In the morning, Wayne was nervously practicing the song, but the song was too difficult, making Wayne a little impatient. At this moment, Little Fatty and Liao suddenly appeared. Little Fatty looked at Wayne, who looked impatient, and suddenly took out his mobile phone and said that he wanted to show Wayne some cartoons to relieve his stress. Wayne took the phone and looked at it, only to see that it was full of infant and child animations such as Calabash, Xiangyang, and Bald Chang. Wayne was shocked at that time. He knew the little fat man, but for so many years he had never discovered that the little fat man had a hobby of reading children's comics. I asked the little fat man a little curiously. As a result, the little fat man looked at Liao next to him with an embarrassed look on his face. Seeing the little fat man hesitating for a long time but unable to explain, Wayne could only silently choose Saint Seiya. After watching it for a while, Wayne suddenly felt that this anime was quite interesting. Among them, the protagonist Seiya seems to be a mutant with the same self-healing ability as himself. No matter how the opponent hits him, no matter how many times he is knocked away, can stand up again. Looking at the deserted place, no one showed up. Just when Wayne was about to walk over to find someone, suddenly Henry, who was as tall as the rock, climbed up from behind the flower bed. Quote. Looking at the other party's big figure, Wayne was suddenly curious about how he hid himself behind the flower bed that was only 50 centimeters high. You are their leader. Looking at the strong man in front of him, Wayne suddenly thought of Tusi, who he killed instantly. They were also dressed as soldiers with a group of soldiers. He also has a military aura and possesses superpowers. But this one obviously looks more powerful than that silly Tusi. Zizizi. Henry didn't answer Wayne's words. Instead, he flipped his hands, and streaks of blue thunder appeared instantly, gradually covering his body and wrapping him in thunder. Are you in the same organization as Francis? Wayne narrowed his eyes slightly. If the other party is the same man-made superpower as Tusi, then it proves that the people coming this time are from the organization. After a few months, there was finally news about the organization again, and Wayne's eyes were filled with murderous intent. It's time to bleed this organization again. Wayne stepped forward, and his whole body turned into a black shadow again and rushed towards Henry. What? Seeing Wayne disappear in an instant, Henry shouted loudly, and the lightning on his body suddenly burst out in all directions. As early as when Wayne entered the battlefield, he had been silently paying attention to Wayne's battle and thinking about ways to deal with it. However, Wayne's abnormal speed and strength were too difficult to resist. Before he could think of a countermeasure, Wayne killed half of his soldiers to pieces. Seeing Wayne preparing to continue massacring his soldiers, he had to step forward in advance. As long as he could stop Wayne, he believed that his soldiers could regain control of the situation by relying on ability-suppressing potions. As for himself, he could only resist Wayne's brutal attack through large-scale attacks. Seeing the sudden burst of lightning, Wayne's progress suddenly stopped. Seeing the flashing hedgehog in front of him, Wayne suddenly felt a little troubled. Although the lightning just now could not kill him, it could temporarily paralyze his limbs and make him unable to move. And if he couldn't guarantee high-speed movement, then he wouldn't be 100% sure to avoid the syringe's attack. Although he didn't know what was in the syringe, his sixth sense finally appeared again and told Wayne that it was best not to let that thing hit him. Seeing that the other party just maintained the lightning around him without taking the initiative to attack, Wayne understood the other party's intention in an instant. The opponent obviously doesn't intend to defeat him, but intends to drag him here. This proved that the opponent was confident of making a comeback with the remaining soldiers. I thought again of the strange syringe and the mutants who fell to the ground inexplicably after being hit by the syringe. Wayne's brain began to work rapidly. After a while, Wayne started running again, but this time the target was not the electric hedgehog, but ran to the foot of a big tree not far away. Click. Wayne inserted his hands directly into the big tree, which could only be circled by two people hugging each other, and used his arms to pull out the entire old tree that had lived for who knows how many years. The movement of uprooting the tree immediately attracted the attention of others. The little fat man has just completed a new round of mobilization and is standing in a safe place using his mobile phone to search online for how to use words to mobilize students' emotions. Suddenly there was a loud noise, and the little fat man subconsciously followed the sound and looked over, only to see Wayne holding a large tree more than 10 meters high with both hands. The huge contrast in size between the big tree and Wayne made this scene look like a greedy ant holding dozens of times its own food and trying to drag it back to its ant nest. At this time, this Wayne lifted the big tree and rushed straight towards the ball of lightning not far away from him. Boom, boom, boom. Because he was hugging a big tree, Wayne's steps were not as light as before, and every step made a muffled sound on the ground. If we say that Wayne before was like a ghost in the night, wandering in the night, constantly harvesting the lives of his enemies. At this moment, Wayne was like a crazy wild boar, using the big tree as his fangs and ramming straight towards his prey. Hiding in the defensive network of electric lights, Henry was thinking about why Wayne had been silent during this period, when he suddenly turned around when he heard a sound. Through the gap in the electric light, Henry only saw a huge black thing rushing towards him. Without enough time to dodge, Henry fired out all the lightning surrounding him in desperation. There was lightning and thunder in an instant. These lightnings had been accumulated by Henry for a long time. At this time, they were all emitted at once, and the dazzling light suddenly illuminated the entire battlefield. Before the big tree came to take Henry away, it was already reduced to ashes by the overwhelming lightning, but there was no trace of Wayne in the ashes. Oops! Henry's pupils shrank sharply, and he thought to himself. Just as he was about to release lightning again, a black shadow suddenly appeared behind Henry at some unknown time. Just as a flash of lightning appeared between his fingers, Henry felt a huge force coming from behind him. The next second, he hit the wall like a kicked football. The moment Henry fired the lightning, Wayne threw the big tree directly. Taking advantage of this gap, Wayne accelerated again and ran directly behind Henry. Without the protection of lightning, Henry was like the ordinary soldiers before in front of Wayne. Seeing Henry lying on the ground groping around with his hands, trying to get up from the ground, Wayne paused slightly and rushed towards Henry again. Just as Wayne rushed to Henry and wanted to punch him again, Henry's hand in the dark suddenly threw out a needle. Boom! Wayne's heart tightened, and he quickly kicked the ground, using the reaction force to stop himself. The needle flew past Wayne's hair. You still can't rush too fast. Looking at Henry, who had successfully stood up and his body was glowing with electricity again, Wayne thought silently. Wayne was just about to be tricked. Because Wayne's own speed was too fast, the needle appeared to be as fast as lightning. In fact, Even after Henry's organizational transformation, in addition to possessing lightning powers, his physical fitness and other aspects have also been improved in all aspects. However, after Wayne was hit hard by the blow just now, he also suffered a lot of internal injuries, and was unable to throw a threatening attack at all. Zzzz. Blue electric lights kept chirping in the air. Looking at the hedgehog-like players in front of him, Wayne couldn't help but feel a little pain in his head. Ignoring the enemies in front of him, Wayne suddenly rushed back, preparing to deal with the soldiers first. However, as soon as Wayne's front foot moved, a bolt of lightning suddenly flew over from behind, blocking Wayne's path forward. "You'd better stay and play with me." A rough male voice came from the electric light. Turning around again, Wayne gave up his plan to support his teammates. No matter how fast he was, he couldn't move faster than lightning. The electric hedgehog in front of him made Wayne feel a little sick. Wayne himself also knew that lightning could not cause harm to him. He had already experienced countless electric shock suits when he was first caught by Francis. Although the electric hedgehog in front of him was more powerful than the electric shock suit at that time, Wayne himself was no longer the same person as before. However, as long as Wayne is hit by lightning and slowed down once, what awaits him is endless lightning and the strange syringe. So for a while, the scene suddenly came to a stalemate. Wayne looked at the lightning hedgehog in front of him without saying a word, frantically thinking of ways to break the deadlock in his mind, and Henry was also happy. Anyway, his purpose was just to hold Wayne back. Hiding in the defensive network of electric light, Henry looked at the frontal battlefield through the electric light. Logan was still fighting bloody battles among the crowd. If it were normal times, Logan might be able to kill so many soldiers in a short time alone. However, the soldiers Henry brought this time were no ordinary soldiers. He understood the importance of this mission, so the soldiers he brought were all the elites of each army. In such an open field, there were no obstacles to avoid. No matter how strong Logan was, he could not withstand the continuous output of more than a dozen soldiers. As the battle continued, although the number of soldiers was reduced by nearly half, Logan's wounds became more and more numerous and his movements became slower and slower. Adonis, who came with him, needed to emerge from his shadow state when using his abilities. In this case, as soon as he showed his head, he would face dozens of bullets. So after such a long time, Adonis has been wandering around the battlefield, and has not made any achievements except for finding a flaw in the two soldiers on the way, controlling the shadow and killing them. The student counterattack teams temporarily organized by others can only protect themselves. Although many students have participated in the counterattack, only those students with long-range attack capabilities can launch some sporadic counterattacks. And more students are like face-changing contestants, and they are with everyone in spirit. Henry was secretly observing the situation on the battlefield, and Wayne naturally discovered the situation there. As time goes by, if soldiers continue to use that kind of syringe, the advantage of the war situation will inevitably favor these soldiers again. It can't be delayed any longer, Wayne thought as he looked at the lightning hedgehog in front of him. Just when Henry thought he had successfully delayed Wayne, Wayne suddenly moved across from him. Without wasting any more time to pull up any big trees, Wayne rushed straight towards Henry. Withdrawing his gaze, Henry looked at the black shadow rushing towards him in the darkness and smiled ferociously. With a wave of his hand, several bolts of lightning went straight towards the black shadow. However, just when lightning was about to hit Wayne, Wayne suddenly changed direction and ran towards the right. Henry missed the target with one blow and looked to the right hurriedly. However, Wayne's footsteps did not stop, but began to spin around Henry. In order to ensure that he would not be attacked by Wayne, Henry could only follow Wayne like a top. Not long after, Henry suddenly felt a little dizzy. Of course it's okay for Wayne to just run in circles, but Henry keeps spinning in circles. Although your physical fitness is far superior to that of ordinary people, it doesn't matter how many turns you make. You can try turning dozens of times or hundreds of times. After Henry turned around a few more times, he suddenly stopped, but objects in all directions were still shifting to the right. Shaking his head, Henry suddenly saw Wayne rushing from his left out of his peripheral vision. "You think you can defeat me like this? You are naive." The lightning all around broke out again, but it seemed that Henry's eyes were a little crooked, and this time the lightning did not fly directly towards Wayne. Instead, it leaned a little to the right. Oops. Seeing Wayne holding on to part of the lightning and continuing to rush towards him, Henry suddenly panicked. He hurriedly reached out to take out the syringe he was carrying, but then the dizziness still surrounded him. Stretching his hand downward, he did not touch the syringe accurately. Just when he was about to continue touching, Wayne was already in front of him. Looking at Henry, who was panicking in front of him, Wayne showed a smile. Extending his fist, Wayne shouted, "I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more."